Chapter 115. The discovery of a large number of Sharingan in the root vault was unexpected at first glance, but after thinking about it, Hyojin felt that it was completely reasonable. The cooperation between Danzo and Orochimaru began very early. To some extent, Danzo can be regarded as Orochimaru's sponsor and supporter, so he naturally enjoyed a lot of the results of Orochimaru's research. Perhaps it was during this process that Danzo understood the power of the Sharingan, and was determined to completely eradicate the Uchiha clan and obtain more and better Sharingan. At this time, Obsidian also moved his eyes to the utensils containing the Sharingan, and said in a deep voice, "The Sharingan belongs to me, the cell culture utensils belong to you." Hyojin heard this and pondered. If it's the Manjikyu Sharingan, he definitely won't give it to Obsidian, because that would be supporting the enemy, but if it's the ordinary 3 Magatama Sharingan, there's no harm in giving it to Obsidian. Moreover, in terms of value alone, for Hyojin, these 3 Magatama Sharingan may not be comparable to the cell culture utensils on the side. So after a little pondering, he nodded and said, "Okay, let's do that." After reaching a consensus, the two of them got busy. Hyojin quickly walked to the shelf of the cell culture utensils, looked at them carefully, and then took out the storage scroll from the ninja bag on his waist. Just by looking at it, he still can't determine what kind of cells are in these cell culture utensils, so he can only choose to pack them all up and go back to find the equipment to identify them one by one. But considering that Danzo has never stopped the research of the first-generation cells, so with so many cell culture utensils, he guessed that there must be the first-generation cells. Taking down the cell culture utensils from the shelf, Hyojin carefully placed them on the storage scroll, and then lightly shouted, "Seal!" Bang! As a puff of smoke rose, all the cell culture dishes on the storage scrolls were sealed into the storage scrolls. On the other side, Obsidian was doing the same thing. Both of them had a tacit understanding and did not interfere with each other. Instead, they searched for the items that they fancied Uchiha clan grounds. After Jishui revealed his Manjikyu Sharingan, Patriarch Fuyue's ambition suddenly grew. However, Fugaku also knows that Shirsue's attitude is obviously biased towards Konoha, and Uchiha Shinichi's whereabouts are unknown, so it's not a good time to provoke a rebellion. Even if they wanted to rebel, they had to at least convince Jishui and find Uchiha Shinichi. Only in this way can Uchiha concentrate the power of 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan, destroy the village's top leaders in an instant, and seize the power of the village in one fell swoop while the other ninja clans in the village were not able to react. After making up his mind, Fuyue stood his ground and ordered Jishui, "Go, bring Shinichi back safely." Jishui nodded excitedly. The support of the Patriarch made him very happy, and also made him let out a long sigh of relief. After bowing to the people in the house again, Jishui promised, "Please rest assured, I will definitely bring Shinichi back." At this moment, an Uchiha Jonin rushed into the room with a panicked expression and shouted, "Something bad has happened, Hokage-sama has surrounded us with his people." "What?" Everyone in the house was taken aback. Jishui took a step forward and grabbed the collar of Uchiha Jonin excitedly and asked, "What nonsense are you talking about? How could Naruto-sama lead a team to surround us?" The Uchiha Jonin struggled to break free from Jishui's grip and shouted, "Go and see for yourself, there are Umbu all around. Is the village going to attack our Uchiha clan? Then what are we waiting for? Yes, let's do it, let's fight with them. 3 generations is not a big deal, it's not like we don't have a chance of winning." The house that had just calmed down immediately became noisy again, and most of the people in the house fell into an indescribable fanaticism and excitement. As the Patriarch, Fuyue still crossed his arms in front of his chest at this moment with a gloomy face and a thoughtful expression. Perhaps because of the awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan, Fuyue is different from the people who are clamoring for a rebellion. His state of mind is very calm at this time. It is precisely because of the calmness of his mind that he quickly analyzed the intentions of 3 generations. If the elders of the village really want to attack the Uchiha clan, then the war has already broken out at this moment, and they will not allow the Uchiha clan to excitedly discuss whether to rebel or not. It seems that 3 generations just want to intimidate us and stabilize the situation. After thinking about this, Fuyue slowly stood up. Seeing Fuyue stand up, the eyes of all the Uchiha clan in the house fell on him, waiting for his order. Jishui also looked over. At this time his palms were full of sweat, and his heart was almost in his throat. He has made up his mind, as long as Fuyue gives the order to rebel, he will immediately use Kodo Amatsukami on Fuyue, and then control Fuyue to cancel the order to rebel. Facing everyone's eyes, Fuyue said in a deep voice, "Let's go, come with me to meet the 3 generations." Soon, Fuyue led a group of Uchiha clan to the outside of the clan. At this time, outside the Uchiha clan, hundreds of my ninjas and at least 15 Umbu squads have gathered. These my ninjas almost surrounded the Uchiha clan. It seems that as long as 3 generations Naruto gives the order, they will rush into the Uchiha clan. "You stay here, Jishui, come with me." After giving orders to the clansmen behind him, Fuyue only led Jishui and walked towards the 3 generations who were surrounded by a group of Umbu. After approaching, Fuyue asked, "Naruto-sama, what do you mean by this?" 3 generations' sharp eyes swept over Fuyue and Jishui and said, "You should have also received the news, Shinichi Uchiha has betrayed the village." Jishui hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Naruto-sama, please rest assured, I will go and bring Shinichi back now." 3 generations shook their heads. This is a special time, all members of the Uchiha clan are not allowed to leave the clan. Fuyue's eyes turned cold and he thought, it seems that the village also knows about Shinichi awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan. 3 generations Naruto has mobilized so many people to intimidate the Uchiha clan. Obviously, they have learned about the awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan by Uchiha Shinichi through some channels. Otherwise, the betrayal of an ordinary Uchiha Shinichi would not cause such a big commotion. Jishui explained, "Naruto-sama, only I can bring Shinichi back." Chapter 116. Crack. After crushing the throat of the last Umbu ninja, Uchiha Shinichi looked coldly in the direction of the village. He didn't have anyone to assist him in this operation. Therefore, when he entered the root base, he didn't find the whereabouts of Danzo, so he had to make a big mess in the root base, and then under the siege of a group of pursuers, he fought and retreated, and finally escaped from the village. Dropping his hand, he threw the body of the Umbu ninja aside. At this time, beside Uchiha Shinichi, there were 4 bodies of Umbu ninjas lying in disorder. Among these bodies, except for the last one whose throat was crushed by Uchiha Shinichi, the others, without exception, had their throats slit. There were not many traces of fighting in the whole battlefield. It seems that it was a one-sided battle. Suddenly, Uchiha Shinichi turned his head and looked in a direction, and then frowned slightly. After awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan, Kuroto's perception has changed dramatically, so just now, Kuroto once again perceived a large group of pursuers coming towards him. And among the pursuers, there are a few people with very strong chakra. Originally, he wanted to turn and leave, but after 2 steps, Uchiha Shinichi stopped again, pulled out the short sword from his waist, and stood quietly, waiting for the arrival of the pursuers. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, in a series of wind-breaking sounds, figures fell around Uchiha Shinichi. At this time, one of the Umbu ninja wearing a fox mask said, "Uchiha Shinichi, come back to the village with us, you will receive a fair trial." Listening to the voice of the other party, Uchiha Shinichi said coldly, "Hatake Kakashi?" For the Uchiha clan, Kakashi is not a stranger, because he is the only non-Uchiha clansman in the village, and he is a Mai ninja with Sharingan, so most of the Uchiha Jonin know him. The Umbu ninja took off the fox mask on his face, revealing his true face. This person is not a bystander. He is the captain of Team 11, Hatake Kakashi. After putting away the mask and putting on my forehead protector, Kakashi said, Shinichi, things are not irreparable, it's not too late for you to turn back now. Uchiha Shinichi glanced at the other ninjas around and asked with interest, Are you the only one who came? Where are Hyojin and Jishuei? Because of Jishuei, the composition of the Team 11 is not a secret in the Uchiha clan. Generally, after reaching the level of a Tokubetsu Jonin, the Uchiha clansmen will be informed of this information by the clan. And in the eyes of today's Uchiha Shinichi, a mere Kakashi is nothing. What he wants to defeat is the pride of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Jishuei, and Hyojin who once defeated him. As for Guy, he has never put him in his eyes. Kakashi shook his head. They have other tasks. Kakashi lied, because the 3 generations didn't summon Team 11 at all, only him, so he is very clear that whether it is Jishuei or Hyojin, both of them are at home at the moment. Uchiha Shinichi curled his lips. It's a pity, I thought there would be a hearty battle. Seeing that Uchiha Shinichi has no intention of turning back, Kakashi frowned. He knows what the Manjikyu Sharingan means, so he tried to persuade him. Shinichi, defecting will not only harm yourself, but also the whole Uchiha clan, you have to think about it carefully. Kakashi's voice has not yet died away. Swish, 2 ninjas launched a surprise attack on Uchiha Shinichi from the front and back, one in front and one in the back, 2 long swords facing each other, penetrating Uchiha Shinichi's body. Drip, blood dripped down the blade and fell to the ground. After succeeding, the ninja who launched the surprise attack said coldly, Why are you talking so much nonsense with him? The traitor of the village will die. It's not Genjutsu, nor is it a shadow clone. Kakashi had a look of surprise on his face. He hadn't expected that the others would suddenly make a move, nor had he expected that they would succeed. The other who launched a surprise attack behind Uchiha Shinichi smiled and said, The Manjikyu Sharingan is only SOSO, Naruto-sama does not need to send so many teams. Is that so? Uchiha Shinichi, whose body was penetrated by the 2 swords, chuckled, then waved his hand and instantly killed the 2 ninjas in front and behind him with the short sword in his hand. The 2 ninjas who had their throats slit by a sword covered their throats. Their mouths could only make a vague gulu-gulu sound because of the ruptured arteries. They looked at Uchiha Shinichi in shock, and finally slowly fell to the ground. No one expected that Uchiha Shinichi, whose vital parts were penetrated by the 2 swords, was so agile that it was as if he was not injured at all. Kakashi, with a solemn expression, slowly pushed the forehead protector that covered his left eye to his forehead, and used the Sharingan of his left eye to carefully observe the wounds of Uchiha Shinichi. However, the more he observed, the more puzzled he became. Because those wounds were real, and the blood that flowed out was also real, so he really couldn't understand why Uchiha Shinichi suffered such serious injuries, but nothing happened. Clang! At this time, Uchiha Shinichi calmly pulled out the 2 long swords inserted in his body, and then casually threw them to the ground. Then, the wounds on his body actually recovered in an instant, and the speed was so fast that it seemed to completely skip the healing step. Kakashi asked, This is the ability of your Manjikyu Sharingan, right? Uchiha Shinichi smiled noncommittally, and immediately said, Today, I will let you understand the true power of the Sharingan. Knowing that it was useless to negotiate, Kakashi no longer hesitated, and said to the around him, Everyone, be careful of his genjutsu, don't look directly into his eyes. The surrounding responded, and then immediately launched an attack on Uchiha Shinichi. In an instant, the sound of shurikens breaking the wind, the explosion of detonation talismans, and the whistling of ninjutsu intertwined, resounding over the forest. And Kakashi, who had retreated to the side, carefully observed Uchiha Shinichi while analyzing the ability of Uchiha Shinichi's Manjikyu Sharingan. In Kakashi's view, Only by cracking the ability of Uchiha Shinichi Manjikyu Sharingan can he defeat Uchiha Shinichi. Otherwise, just like just now, his attack will disappear. That scene just now was definitely not an illusion. He was indeed hit, but why is it that even though he suffered a fatal injury, he is completely fine? And why did his wounds heal instantly? If this is the ability of his Manjikyu Sharingan, then how can I crack this technique? Chapter 117. In the root base. After looting the secret warehouse where various test materials are stored, Hyojin and Obsidian once again confronted each other. Although the previous fight was short, it made both of them realize one thing, and that is, in a short period of time, neither of them can do anything to the other. Time is running out. The Root and Umbu ninjas may return to the base at any time, so once they miss this opportunity, it won't be easy to loot the secret warehouse. The masked man said in a deep voice, "There's more than one secret vault. Let's use our own abilities. How about that?" Hyojin nodded. "As long as you don't interfere with me, we can live in peace." Neither of them is an impulsive person. Now that they have determined that there is no way to deal with each other, it is better to split up and loot other secret warehouses. At least they won't return empty-handed. After reaching a consensus again, Obsidian's figure flickered and disappeared out of thin air. It's really convenient and strange, as expected of the pupil technique that can even tear the truth-seeking ball. Looking at Obsidian coming and going freely, Hyojin couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In the original story, Kakashi, who is not of Uchiha bloodline, easily broke the defense of Madara's truth-seeking ball with just a transplanted Manjikyu Sharingan. From this, it can be seen that Kamui's overbearing power is simply unreasonable. At the same time, it also shows that the defense of truth-seeking ball is not invincible, at least it can't defend against spatial attack. Converging his scattered thoughts, Hyojin's figure flashed and rushed out of the secret warehouse that has been looted. Now is obviously not the time to feel how strong Kamui is. If he doesn't take advantage of this opportunity to loot, he doesn't know how long it will take for him to build a new laboratory. After quickly passing through a few dark passages, Hyojin stopped at a corner. Looking around, Kuroto found that there seems to be a laboratory in front of him, and the scale is very large. There are more than a dozen glass experiment tanks for large-scale live experiments. However, there were no test subjects in these glass experiment tanks, and there were no workers in the entire laboratory. It seemed that this was a laboratory that had temporarily stopped operating. After confirming that there were no enemies, Hyojin snuck into the lab. Stopping in front of a refrigerator-like machine, Hyojin looked into the glass cover at the top of the machine. Is this a large cell breeder? Withdrawing his gaze, he took 2 more steps and arrived in front of a row of large experiment tanks. I've never seen this type of nutrition tank before. Did the village just develop it? He touched the glass cover of the nutrition tank and walked all the way to the test bench. His eyes fell on the microscope on the test bench. I think Orochimaru only has one of this kind of high-powered microscope. After a brief tour, Hyojin had a general understanding of the laboratory's specifications. If the laboratory that Orochimaru left him was level 1, then this laboratory's specifications were at least level 5 and above. Hyojin could not even tell what some of the equipment was used for, which showed how high-end and complete the equipment here was. It's all large-scale equipment. Kuroto suddenly had a headache, because at this time, he found that the storage scrolls he had on him were not enough. The space in the storage scrolls was limited, especially when sealing precision instruments. It was often necessary to reserve some space to prevent the instrument from being damaged during sealing. Therefore, a normal storage scroll could only seal one large-scale instrument at most. Hyojin was fishing in troubled waters tonight, so he brought a total of 10 storage scrolls. He thought that 10 storage scrolls would be enough, but when he entered the laboratory, he realized that 10 storage scrolls were far from enough. Tisk, I've underestimated the Danzo family. After secretly cursing, Hyojin began to choose the instruments. Since he couldn't take them all away, he could only choose the most advanced and expensive instruments to take away in the dense forest outside the village. Boom, boom, boom. The shockwave caused by the explosion blew everything around it away. As Kakashi flew back, he used his hand to protect the Sharingan in his left eye, paying close attention to Uchiha Shinichi, who was in the middle of the battlefield. Through this period of careful observation, he found that Uchiha Shinichi was not only strong in illusion, but his physical skills and ninjutsu were also almost impeccable, especially his sword skills, which were very sharp. Clang, clang, clang. After blocking some shurikens that were shot at him with the short sword in his hand again, Uchiha Shinichi sneered, "Your ninja tools are like children playing in my eyes." The 5 Umbu ninjas around ignored Uchiha Shinichi's ridicule. They were all panting and silent. The series of fierce attacks just now consumed a lot of their chakra, but the result was very frustrating. Uchiha Shinichi was not injured at all. Seeing that the morale was a little low, an Umbu shouted, "Don't worry, hold him back, the reinforcements will arrive soon." "Hold me back?" Uchiha Shinichi seemed to have heard a funny joke, and immediately snorted coldly, "With just you." In an instant, a dark green shadow emerged from Uchiha Shinichi's body and turned into a huge skeleton with half a body. There is no doubt that Uchiha Shinichi used the incomplete Susanoo. "You don't understand what the Manjikyu Sharingan means at all." After saying that, he urged his Susanoo to wave his arm, and in an instant, the 5 Umbu ninjas around him were swept away. This? Kakashi, who was hiding in the dark, was shocked. After the 5 Umbu ninjas were sent flying, Uchiha Shinichi didn't attack them one by one, but glanced at the big tree where Kakashi was hiding and shouted, "Kakashi, come out and die." This kind of power is not something ordinary ninjas can resist at all. If all the members of Class 11 are here, maybe we can win, but if it's only me, it's impossible to defeat him. Drops of cold sweat slipped from Kakashi's forehead. He thought that the Manjikyu Sharingan in his left eye could more or less resist Uchiha Shinichi's Manjikyu Sharingan, but until Uchiha Shinichi used the Susanoo, he realized that he thought too much. Suddenly, Uchiha Shinichi's brows furrowed as he heard Kuroto's words. Then, he quickly deactivated the Susanoo, and without saying a word, he turned around and fled. He seemed to be in a hurry and was in a rather sorry state. Chapter 118. There is no injury on his body. Chakra is also not weakened, then why? Why did he suddenly retreat? Kakashi did not rush to chase, but stared at the direction where Uchiha Shinichi left, trying to analyze the reason behind the sudden retreat of Uchiha Shinichi. Analyzing the opponent's ability and evaluating the opponent's strength is the quality that every good ninja should have. After receiving the influence of Mai's White Fan, the guidance of Golden Flash, and the baptism of the Third Shinobi World War, Kakashi is definitely the best among his peers in the field of battlefield analysis. He did not choose to chase, not because of cowardice, but because he knew that he could not break Uchiha Shinichi's Susanoo, even if it was a surprise attack. In the face of Uchiha Shinichi's strange recovery ability, he was not sure if his Chidori would be able to succeed. Therefore, instead of taking the risk to chase at this time, it is better to timely feed back the information collected by his observation to the village. In this way, the village can use this information to form a more targeted hunting team, greatly improving the success rate of hunting Uchiha Shinichi. Swish, swish, swish. About a few minutes later, a figure arrived at the battlefield. The leader is not a bystander, but the leader of the route, one of the Mai's advisory elders, Danzo Shimura. Accompanying him are the patriarchs of the 3 clans, as well as a large number of elite ninjas of Mai such as Hyuga. It can be seen that the village is really angry this time. After glancing around the battlefield with cold eyes, Danzo's gloomy expression suddenly became gloomier. At this time, the battlefield is a mess. The Umbu ninjas are lying on the ground, dead or injured. The only one who seems to be fine is Kakashi. There is no doubt that the hunting operation arranged by the 3 generations has completely failed. Kakashi walked up to Danzo with some guilt. Danzo-sama, we failed. Danzo stared at Kakashi and asked in a low voice, which direction did he escape to? After pointing in the direction in which Uchiha Shinichi escaped, Kakashi continued, Danzo-sama, Uchiha Shinichi's Manjikyu Sharingan ability is very strange. I think, without waiting for Kakashi to finish his words, Danzo ordered a group of my elites to chase after Uchiha and Shinichi. Sigh, Kakashi sighed helplessly. This time, the hunt for Uchiha Shinichi, the 3 generations sent a total of 3 Umbu squads. However, the first Umbu squad to set off, all 4 members died in the battle, then the 2 Umbu squads responsible for the rescue also died in the battle, 5 were seriously injured and fell to the ground. They paid such a heavy price, but the result was nothing. Not only did they not succeed in catching the defected Uchiha Shinichi, they didn't even detect the ability of Uchiha Shinichi's Manjikyu Sharingan. Soon, the news of the failure of the hunt spread back to the village. The 3 generations Naruto, who is leading the team to deter the Uchiha clan, unconsciously looked dignified after learning that the Umbu he sent failed in the hunt. Frankly, the strength of Uchiha Shinichi is somewhat beyond his expectations. This time, the sudden defection of Uchiha Shinichi is like a stone thrown into a lake, stirring up ripples on the originally calm lake. The balance between the Uchiha clan and the village has been broken. A Uchiha who has just awakened his Manjikyu Sharingan can stir up a mess in the village. The weakness of the village is once again revealed in front of everyone. The 3 generations, with a pipe in their mouth, looked at Fuyue not far away from them with the corner of their eyes. He is very worried that after the news of the village's failure in hunting down Uchiha Shinichi spreads back to the Uchiha clan, it will make the radical faction in the Uchiha clan even more crazy. As far as the 3 generations know, in the current Uchiha clan, in addition to the defected Uchiha Shinichi, there is still a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan, and the one who possesses this pair of Manjikyu Sharingan is known as the number 1 genius of Uchiha clan, Uchiha Jishue. After moving their eyes to Jishue beside Fuyue, the 3 generations secretly made up their mind. I must win over Jishue, otherwise the village will face a great disaster. Because the Uchiha clan did not participate in the rebellion of Uchiha Shinichi, the 3 generations slightly appeased Fuyue, and then left the Uchiha clan with a group of my ninjas. At the same time, Hyojin also returned home from the root base. The next day, at dawn, an Umbu landed in the courtyard of Hyojin and said, Tokubetsu Jonin Hyojin, the suspension order of Umbu Team 11 is lifted, Naruto-sama summons you. Hyojin nodded, and without delay, immediately went to the Naruto building. After entering Naruto's office, he found that the other members of Team 11 have already arrived, so he nodded to his colleagues, and then stood in front of Naruto's desk. 3 generations Naruto nodded to Kakashi. After getting the signal from 3 generations, Kakashi quickly described the defection of Uchiha Shinichi last night to the other 3 members of Team 11 in detail. After waiting for Kakashi to finish, 3 generations gently tapped the pipe on the table and said, All members of Team 11, your mission is to hunt down the defected Uchiha Shinichi. Yes. The 4 members of Team 11 replied in unison. After leaving the Naruto building, Kakashi said to Hyojin and the others, Time is limited, everyone only has half an hour to prepare. After half an hour, we will gather at the entrance of the village and set off on time. As for the information about Uchiha Shinichi, I will explain it to you in detail on the way. The 4 nodded and then went back to their homes to prepare. After returning home, Hyojin was packing his luggage while thinking to himself, what is the relationship between Uchiha Shinichi and Obsidian? Through the information obtained from Naruto's office, Hyojin learned that Uchiha Shinichi failed to find Danzo last night. Because of this, Hyojin began to suspect the relationship between Uchiha Shinichi and Obsidian. Obsidian not only can freely enter and exit the village, but his Jetsu is also an expert in gathering information. If Obsidian and Uchiha Shinichi are in a cooperative relationship, then there is no reason why Uchiha Shinichi couldn't find traces of Danzo. Could it be that Uchiha Shinichi is acting recklessly on his own? For a moment, this thought flashed in Hyojin's mind. Although he doesn't know whether this guess is accurate or not, but adhering to the principle of being prepared, Hyojin brought a container full of nutrient solution in his ninja bag. If Uchiha Shinichi's defection was purely his own doing, then the chance of catching him is very high. Chapter 119. In less than 20 minutes, all the members of Team 11 gathered at the entrance of the village. The first to arrive was not Captain Kakashi, but Jishuei. This time Uchiha Shinichi's defection, Jishuei has always felt that he is responsible for it, so last night he made up his mind to bring back Uchiha Shinichi safely even if he has to use Kodo Amatsukami. But he never thought that before he could go out, 3 generations would stop him in the clan's land. After receiving the news that the suspension of Team 11 has been lifted this morning, he was overjoyed. Although he doesn't know why 3 generations suddenly restored his identity as an Umbu, but for him, it doesn't matter. The only thing he cares about is whether or not Uchiha Shinichi can be saved. Kakashi put on a rare serious look and said to everyone, "I'm afraid this mission will be very dangerous, please stay vigilant." At this time Jishuei bowed to everyone and said, "I'm sorry, our Uchiha has caused you trouble." Guy laughed heartily and said, "We are all companions, don't be so polite. Don't worry, we Team 11 will definitely be able to complete the mission smoothly." Hyojin said lightly, "If you have anything to say, say it on the way." Everyone nodded and no longer delayed, they immediately set off. On the way, Kakashi told the whole story of the fight with Uchiha Shinichi yesterday, and then emphasized, "He can summon a huge chakra phantom in the shape of a skeleton, it's very difficult to deal with." Jishuei replied calmly, "It's a kind of Manjikyu Sharingan jutsu, it's called Susanoo." Kakashi was startled, Susanoo? Although Jishuei has used Susanoo several times before, it was either to deal with the demon Morio in a closed cave, or to deal with the Cloud Ninjas after Kakashi fainted and was taken away by Guy. So Kakashi has not seen Jishuei use Susanoo with his own eyes, and Jishuei has not mentioned Susanoo to him. Therefore, when he heard Jishuei say that Susanoo is a Manjikyu Sharingan jutsu, Kuroda was stunned for a moment, because he also has a Manjikyu Sharingan. Seeing Kakashi being distracted, Jishuei thought that he was worried about Uchiha Shinichi's Susanoo, so he said, "Don't worry, I can also use Susan. Then it's easy." After confirming that there is also a companion on his side who can use Susanoo, Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, he felt that letting Uchiha deal with Uchiha Sharingan is the right way. After a pause, Kakashi also mentioned Uchiha Shinichi's strange recovery ability. Jishuei heard this and immediately fell into silence. In the thousands of years of history, the Uchiha clan has developed many strange forbidden jutsu and awakened many Manjikyu Sharingan with different abilities, so for a while, he can't tell what kind of ability Shinichi Uchiha's Manjikyu Sharingan is. On the side, Hyojin is also silently analyzing the ability of Uchiha Shinichi's Manjikyu Sharingan. The so-called Sharingan is the pupil that portrays the soul, so the awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan is not completely untraceable. When Obsidian awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, he fell into despair about the whole world. Hugging Lin's body, he wanted to escape from the truth in front of him, so he awakened the Kamui space that can escape from everything. When Jishuei awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, the conflict between Uchiha and the village became more and more intense, so he was eager to change the will of the people and let everyone reconcile, so he awakened the Kodo Amatsukami that can control the will of the people. When Itachi awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, the relationship between Uchiha and the village had reached the point where one side must be destroyed, so he awakened the Amaterasu that can destroy everything in one eye, and he still had a trace of fantasy in his heart, and the other eye awakened the Tsukuyomi that can reconstruct the virtual world. When Sasuke awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, his mind and body were swallowed by the idea of revenge, so he awakened the Amaterasu and the earth life that can control the black flames. Thinking of this, Hyojin said, "Jishui, tell me again about the murder of Uchiha Kurumi." Jishui didn't ask much, and quickly told the story of the murder of Uchiha Kurumi to everyone in detail. Hyojin, who was listening carefully, suddenly asked, "Wait a minute, you mean that Uchiha Kurumi didn't die immediately when she was held in the arms of Uchiha? Jishui recalled seriously, and then nodded. "Yes, I heard from Shinichi that Kurumi said to him before she died, 'Be careful.'" Kuroto thought to himself, "His beloved breathed her last breath in my arms, but Uchiha Shinichi couldn't do anything about it and could only watch helplessly as his beloved died. So, after awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan, he gained the ability to instantly recover from injuries? This seems to make sense." Kakashi seemed to have thought of something and said, "By the way, Uchiha Shinichi's genjutsu ability has increased a lot, and many jonins have fallen for it, so everyone must be more careful." Guy laughed out loud, "Ha ha!" Jishui asked curiously, "Guy, what are you laughing at?" Guy rubbed his nose and said proudly, "Recently, in order to defeat Kakashi, I have been practicing the ultimate move of being able to judge the opponent's movements without observing their eyes. When I meet Shinichi, let me defeat him." Kakashi said helplessly, "I'm worried about you the most." Jishui added, "Well, when we meet Shinichi, let me do it. In terms of genjutsu, I still have some experience." Halfway through his words, Homusubi turned his gaze towards Suijin. Hyojin smiled and said, "Just say what you want to say. Why are you hesitating? Senpai, please promise me." After a pause, Jishui continued, "If possible, please try to keep Shinichi alive. He is not a bad person." Both Kakashi and Guy looked at Hyojin at the same time. Listening to Jishui's request to Hyojin, the two of them felt very strange. Because listening to Jishui's tone, it seems that Hyojin can easily kill Uchiha Shinichi, but Uchiha Shinichi made a big mess in the root base, and then defeated 3 Umbu Squad Manjikyu Sharingan. Although the two of them know that Hyojin is strong, they don't think that Hyojin is strong enough to crush Uchiha Shinichi. Hyojin shook his head and said, "The ability of Manjikyu Sharingan is too strange. If I don't fight with the determination to kill him, the one who will die in the end may be me." In the shinobi world, no one has the qualification to underestimate the enemy. Chapter 120. After removing the small letter tube from the communication eagle, Kakashi opened the letter and looked at it, and suddenly frowned. Jishui quickly asked, "Did Danzo-sama catch up with Shinichi?" Kakashi shook his head and handed the letter to the anxious Jishui, while saying to everyone, "Danzo-sama and the others were led away by Shinichi-sama's shadow clone, so they couldn't catch up with Shinichi." Jishui heard this and breathed a sigh of relief. Uchiha-sama Shinichi not only made a big mess at the root base, but also slapped the face of Danzo, causing the prestige of Danzo in the village to suffer a great blow. Danzo-sama's malice towards the Uchiha clan has never been concealed. Now that Uchiha-sama Shinichi-sama has made such a scene, Jishui is very clear that if Shinichi falls into the hands of Danzo-sama, then he will die without a doubt. Hyojin took the letter and glanced at it, and immediately chuckled, looks like we're going to be busy." Dojutsu Kekkei Genkai is an expert in tracking and anti-tracking. In the Hyuga clan, as long as one's strength reaches the level of Chunin, the clan will send a tracking expert to guide the clansmen. Hyojin-sama has received guidance from a Jonin in tracking technique. The Uchiha clan may not be as good as the Hyuga clan in terms of tracking techniques, but in terms of anti-tracking, they are experts. Therefore, tracking an ordinary Uchiha Jonin is a very difficult task, not to mention a Manjikyu Sharingan possessor with excellent eyesight. Because of the sudden incident, Danzo only had time to recruit Richa Hyuga of the Hyuga clan. As for the other two shinobi clans that are proficient in tracking techniques, Shimura Danzo didn't wait for the experts of these two clans to arrive at the edge of the village, so he hurriedly led his team and set off in a hurry. Obviously, Danzo wanted to kill off Uchiha Shinichi as soon as possible to minimize the impact of this storm. Unfortunately, without the assistance of the Inuzuka clan, who can track the scent, and the Asami clan, who can control the parasitic worms to conduct a large-scale search, it is too difficult to find a Manjikyu Sharingan expert who is good at anti-tracking in the vast forest with just a pair of Byakugan eyes. This awkwardness also reflected the most serious problem of the village at the moment. That was the lack of a shadow rank powerhouse to deal with all kinds of emergencies. There are a lot of elite jonin in the village, but there are not many shadow rank powerhouses who can really control the situation. 3 generations need to stay in the village, and Jiraiya is at the front line of defense against Cloud Village, so when Uchiha Shinichi made a mess in the root base, the one who should have taken action was Danzo, the leader of the root base. However, Danzo has been in the shadows for too long, so long that he has lost his sharpness, and there is nothing left in his heart. So when Uchiha Shinichi made a mess in the root base, he chose to temporarily avoid the sharp edge. Hyojin was not surprised by this. During the Nine Tails Rebellion, Danzo retreated. In the original timeline, when Orochimaru counterattacked Mai, Danzo retreated again, and when Pain attacked Mai, Danzo still retreated. From the beginning to the end, no matter how many attacks the village suffered, Danzo always hid in the shadows, watching coldly. Guy turned his head and asked, "Danzo, Sama lost us, where are we going to find Shinichi?" Kakashi did not answer, but directly printed, "Psychic art." Bang! When the white smoke dissipated, 8 ninjas of different sizes appeared in front of everyone. At this time, Kakashi took out a piece of blood-stained cloth and handed it to the ninjas and said, "Please help me find the owner of this smell." This piece of cloth was found by Kakashi last night when he was cleaning the battlefield. The owner of the cloth is naturally Uchiha Shinichi, and the blood stained on the cloth is also Uchiha Shinichi's. Among the 8 ninjas, the leader named Parker sniffed the blood-stained cloth and said, "Come with me." After saying that, Parker led the way. After a few hours of trekking, the people of Class 11 stopped. Parker raised his foreleg and pointed to the front. Kakashi, the owner of the smell, should be hiding there. Everyone looked in the direction that Parker was pointing at, only to see that there were only trees and nothing else. At this time, everyone looked at Hyojin. Hyojin, who has activated Byakugan, looked around and shook his head. There is only a tree hole, there seems to be something left inside, but Shinichi is not inside. When everyone came to the tree hole, they were all surprised. The cave was filled with bloodstains and congealed bloodstains. Blood-stained bandages were strewn all over the ground. It was as if a heavily injured person had bandaged his wounds here. Shursui had a puzzled look on his face. Is he really that badly injured? But didn't the Danzo-sama fail to find him? Kakashi turned his head and confirmed with Parker. Does the smell in this hole match the smell on the cloth? Parker sniffed and said, "It's definitely the same." Hyojin squatted on the ground and said lightly, "The blood stains on the ground have solidified and turned black. This shouldn't have happened today, it should have happened last night." Jishui asked with a solemn expression, "Is there another group of people chasing Shinichi? I can't rule out this possibility." After a pause, Hyojin asked Kakashi, "Are you sure that Shinichi was not injured when he retreated?" Kakashi replied, "During the battle, he was indeed fatally injured several times, but he quickly recovered. There is not even a scar on his wounds." For Kakashi, who has a Manjikyu Sharingan, his perception of subtle details is not much worse than Hyojin and Jishui. What's more, he was concentrating on observing Uchiha and Shinichi at that time, so no detail escaped his eyes. He was not injured when he retreated, and the subsequent pursuit of the village was also shaken off by him using the shadow clone technique, so how did he suffer such heavy injuries? Is there really a third force involved? Is it the obsidian Shinichi? Or is it someone else? Hyojin supported his chin with one hand and thought quietly. In his opinion, if it was the obsidian Shinichi, Uchiha and Shinichi would have either been killed directly or escaped directly, and such a fierce battle should not have happened. This is not in line with the obsidian Shinichi's fighting style. Unless Shinichi can force the obsidian Shinichi to use wood release. Hyojin quickly shook his head and drove this absurd idea out of his mind. First, Obsidian does not need to fight with Uchiha and Shinichi. Second, Obsidian, who has been pretending to be Madara, will not expose his wood release for Uchiha and Shinichi. Chapter 121. After realizing that there may be a third party involved in this matter, except for Hyojin, the other 3 members of Class 11 were filled with worry. They are worried about the purpose of this mysterious force, but they are also worried that Shinichi has fallen into the hands of the other party. One must know that the value of a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan is difficult to estimate, and there is no technical barrier to transplanting Manjikyu Sharingan. Kakashi is the best example. Considering that the pair of Manjikyu Sharingan might have fallen into Mai's hands, Jishue quickly asked Parker, "Can we continue to track him?" Parker walked around the tree hole and said, "It's hard to say, the smell is almost concentrated in the tree hole, and the smell left outside is very faint." Kakashi urged, "Let's give it a try." Parker had no choice but to nod. Instantly, the 8 shinobi spread out around the tree hole, searching for the smell left by Uchiha Shinichi. Not long after, a shinobi raised his front paw and said, "Found it." Parker hurriedly rushed over, sniffed carefully with his nose and nodded. "And it's his smell." After discovering the whereabouts of Uchiha Shinichi again, Class 11 didn't delay and immediately followed him. Walking and stopping along the way, the day passed quickly. In the campsite, the 4 members of Class 11 sat together and carefully studied the map. Drawing a line on the map with his finger, Kakashi said, "Judging from the route Shinichi escaped, his destination seems to be the Land of Hot Water, Land of Moon, and Land of Lightning." Staring at the map, the other 3 members of Class 11 fell into silence. For Class 11 who had experienced the battle in the valley, they are too familiar with this area, so they know very well what this area means. If Uchiha Shinichi is only hiding in the Land of Hot Water and Land of Moon, then everything will be fine, but if Uchiha Shinichi defected to Cloud Village, then there will be a lot of trouble. As a Tokubetsu Jonin, Uchiha Shinichi knows many secrets of the village, plus he is a member of the Uchiha clan, so he is very clear about the conflict between the Uchiha clan and the village. In other words, putting aside his value as a Manjikyu Sharingan, just the leak of the information he has is a huge problem for the village. After pondering for a long time, Jishue said, "We must stop him in the Land of Fire." Guy also nodded in agreement. "Well, we can't let him make the same mistake again." Kakashi said, "I'll send a message to Lord Jiraiya at the border and have them prepare to intercept." Suijin was silent, thinking in his heart, does he want to defect to Kumo and go to Kumo? Will Cloud Village take him in? Will Cloud Village dare to take him in? If Cloud Village takes in Uchiha Shinichi, then the ongoing peace talks will be meaningless. This also means that Mai and Cloud Village will once again enter a state of war, and this time, Mai has no way to retreat, so he can only bite the bullet and fight to the end. However, considering the shamelessness of Cloud Village, they may secretly take in Uchiha Shinichi, but on the surface they don't know anything about it. After all, they have sent people to Mai's village twice to kidnap children. Others may not be able to do such a thing, but they definitely can. The next day, before dawn, Team 11 set out again. Originally, Seiji thought that this would be a simple mission to capture a traitorous ninja, but with the involvement of a mysterious third party, as well as the possibility that Shinichi's target might be Cloud Village, things became much more complicated. The 4 members of Team 11 understood that if they can't quickly capture Uchiha Shinichi, things are likely to develop to the point of a shinobi war. After tracking for a long time, Hyojin frowned. "This is too abnormal," Guy said. "Yes, if Shinichi is really seriously injured, how can his speed be so fast? This doesn't make sense at all." Jishui said, "Don't worry about it, keep chasing. Now is not the time to worry about this problem. Anyway, when they catch up with Uchiha Shinichi, everything will be revealed." In the evening, the sun gradually set, leaving only a trace of sunset glow hanging on the horizon. At this time, Parker, who has been tracking for a whole day, suddenly said, "The smell is getting stronger and stronger. He is not far ahead." Hearing this, everyone in Team 11 raised their vigilance. Although they are happy that they have intercepted Uchiha Shinichi in the territory of the Land of Fire, but at the same time, it also means that a war is inevitable, and considering that there may be a third party involved, the 4 members of Team 11 didn't show any joy. Suddenly, Hyojin shouted, "Everyone be careful!" Boom! 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 Just as Hyojin's voice fell, a series of explosions occurred around them. Jumping on the trunk of a big tree, Hyojin activated Byakugan and focused his attention on the surroundings. The explosion just now was caused by the detonation talismans. These detonation talismans are obviously specially processed, and Chakra's reaction is very small, so only when they got close did Hyojin notice it. "The other party knows that I have Byakugan. This is a targeted ambush." In just an instant, Hyojin judged the situation in front of him. The only thing he can't determine is whether these people are here to rescue Uchiha Shinichi, or to deal with the mysterious third party behind Uchiha Shinichi. At this time, the smoke and dust caused by the explosion of the detonation talismans has not yet dissipated. In order to avoid the explosion of the detonation talismans, the 4 members of Team 11 scattered in all directions. Although the distance between each other is not too far, the team formation that was used to cover each other has disappeared. In the field of vision of Hyojin's Byakugan, a large number of Chakra's reaction talismans surrounded them from all directions, and judging from the amount of Chakras, they are all Jonin-level experts. Hyojin's expression became serious and quickly shouted to the scattered members of Team 11. "Everyone be careful, the other party has a lot of people, and all of them are Jonin-level experts." Just after warning his teammates, Hyojin heard a burst of wind-breaking sound. Judging from the sound alone, he could guess that these sounds were all made by the flying kunais, and they were not ordinary kunais. They should all be kunais with detonation talismans tied around them. With a flash, Hyojin easily avoided these kunai, accompanied by a series of deafening explosions. He quickly retreated to a relatively open space. At this time, a figure blocked Kuroto's path. It was none other than Uchiha Shinichi, whom Team 11 had been pursuing for a long time. Hyojin curled his lips. "You appeared in front of me alone, don't tell me you want to fight me one-on-one." Chapter 122. Zetsu slowly rose from the ground, revealing his head that was sandwiched between 2 Nepenthes leaves, and asked with a puzzled look, "Why are we helping that kid?" Last night, the reason why the Danzo team failed to catch up with Uchiha Shinichi is that, in addition to Uchiha Shinichi's superb anti-tracking skills, Zetsu and Obsidian also contributed a lot. Otherwise, Shinichi alone may not be able to get rid of the Danzo's pursuit overnight. Obsidian, who was standing quietly with his hands hanging down, muttered, "He is a useful chess piece." Zetsu said disapprovingly, "But we have lost control of him." "No." Shaking his head, Obsidian said flatly, "As long as he is alive, it is enough." Obsidian is very clear about the contradiction between the Uchiha clan and the village, so as long as Uchiha Shinichi Uchiha is still alive, the Uchiha clan and the village will never forget this rift. Zetsu said, "Mai has sent more than one team to pursue him. It is difficult to say whether he can successfully defect or not. Obsidian glanced at Zetsu and asked, "Didn't I tell you to let your clone monitor him?" Zetsu shrugged. "His perception is very strong, my clone can't get close to him." After awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan, Shinichi Uchiha's perception has been greatly improved, even surpassing many perception-type ninjas, making it difficult for Zetsu to monitor him. "Keep an eye on him, now is not the time for him to die." Saying that, Obsidian suddenly remembered the mysterious person he encountered at the root base, and his face sank. Noticing Obsidian's emotional fluctuations, Zetsu asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Obsidian said, "Last night at the root base, I met a mysterious man. He was very strong, I fought with him for a few rounds, but I didn't get the upper hand." "Has such an expert?" When Ju heard this, he was quite surprised. Obsidian said, "As far as I know, apart from the few old men and Jiraiya, there shouldn't be such an expert in the village. But for some reason, that person gave me a very familiar feeling." "Familiar?" After a pause, Ju asked, "Do you know him?" Obsidian shook his head. "Among the people I know, there shouldn't be such an expert." When he left the root base, Obsidian had carefully thought about it. Among the people he knew, except for 4 generations Naruto, no one else had the strength of the mysterious person. Even Kakashi, who had his left eye, was no exception. But what made him most afraid was the faint self-confidence of the mysterious person. This kind of self-confidence he had only seen in 4 generations Naruto. Ju chuckled and said, "To be able to make you feel afraid, I am also a little curious about that person's identity." Boom, boom, boom. The sound of explosions in the distance was still lingering. Just by listening to the movement, Hyojin could tell that his companions from Class 11 were engaged in a fierce battle over there. On the opposite side, Shinichi Uchiha pulled out a short knife from his waist, waved it in the air, and said, "Hyojin, I actually don't hate you, but I can't let go of the regret of losing to you." Hyojin lightly said, "We all underestimated you. To be able to sneak into the Land of Fire with such a large number of shinobi, the identity of the other party was actually obvious from the moment they fought. And from the fact that Kumo sent elite shinobi to cooperate with Shinichi Uchiha to ambush Class 11, Hyojin concluded that before Shinichi Uchiha defected, he had already colluded with Kumo. Otherwise, Kumo wouldn't have had enough time to send elite Shinichi Uchiha Shinichi. Hyojin secretly speculated, it should be a spy from Kumo lurking in the village who instigated Uchiha Shinichi. This Kumo spy not only understood the resentment of Uchiha Shinichi towards the village, but also managed to get close to Shinichi Uchiha without being noticed. The identity of this person is definitely not ordinary. Suppressing his thoughts, Hyojin slowly pulled out the Kusanagi from his waist. Maru said, "Let's find another place, I can't use it here." Shinichi Uchiha was startled when he heard Maru's words, but immediately smiled and said, "No need, I don't need much time to deal with you now." Hyojin didn't pay attention to him. Instead, he looked for a direction with no one and flew away. "Oh, don't you feel embarrassed showing such an ugly appearance?" After chuckling, Shinichi Uchiha chased after Kuroto. Whether it is Hyojin or Uchiha Shinichi, both of them are extremely fast, so it didn't take long for them to be far away from the ambush point of Kumo, and the rumbling of explosions could no longer be heard. Shinichi Uchiha asked impatiently, "Hey, how long are you going to run?" Hyojin said without looking back, "I don't want to run, I just want to find a place where there is no one around to kill you." Shinichi Uchiha snorted, "Stupid guy, you don't understand the meaning of Manjikyu Sharingan. The Byakugan of your Hyuga family is not worthy of being called Sharingan." Hyojin looked back at Uchiha Shinichi coldly, then stopped. Shinichi Uchiha also stopped, waving the katana in his hand, and said with emotion, "When I awaken the cursed eyes, I am different from you." Seeing that Shinichi Uchiha was completely immersed in his own intoxication, Hyojin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But it's not that he can't completely understand Uchiha Shinichi. After all, Uchiha just awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, especially killing the root and umbu, like killing chickens and dogs. It's inevitable that his confidence is inflated. This is an opportunity. Hyojin didn't miss the opportunity. He secretly used Rain Wheel to pull Uchiha Shinichi towards him, while holding the poisonous grass in his hand. Maru rushed forward. The Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil technique is too strange. If he can sneak attack, it's better to sneak attack. Whoosh! Suddenly, Shinichi Uchiha was stabbed in the heart by Hyojin. Looking down at the grass that pierced his heart, Maru Uchiha Shinichi asked in confusion, "What was that move just now?" Kuroto didn't feel the slightest joy at the success of his attack and immediately retreated. Then, he found that, as Kakashi said, the wound on Uchiha Shinichi's chest quickly healed. If it wasn't for the sword mark on his clothes, he wouldn't even be sure if he really stabbed Uchiha Shinichi just now. Is it an illusion? No, even if my Tenseigan can't resist, the dragon vein will wake me up. Chapter 123. If it's not an illusion, then why is my attack ineffective? Holding grass? Pill. Hyojin thought about it. Grass? Pill's ability was to inhibit wound healing, and grass? On the blade of Pill, Hyojin had specially quenched the paralysis toxin, so according to common sense, the blow just now was enough to kill Uchiha Shinichi. But Uchiha Shinichi recovered in an instant. There was not even a scar on the wound, and there was no trace of using the forbidden technique Izanagi. At this time, Hyojin carefully looked at Uchiha Shinichi again. Through the smell, it has been confirmed that the blood in the tree hole was indeed left by Uchiha Shinichi, and according to the amount of blood, Uchiha Shinichi should be seriously injured at this time. But now, Uchiha Shinichi didn't look injured at all. No, the ability of his Manjikyu Sharingan is not to heal quickly, but to remove the state of injury. No, not remove, but to a specific time period. Combining all the information, and the situation of the sneak attack just now, Hyojin had a bold guess in his heart. Uchiha Shinichi said at this time, "See, you can't beat me." Hyojin tentatively asked, "Is this the ability of your Manjikyu Sharingan? Remove the damage? Or delay it?" Uchiha Shinichi's eyes were cold, and he said with a somewhat unnatural expression, "You are worthy of being the person who defeated me. Your insight is really sharp. It seems that I can only kill you today." Swish! As soon as the voice fell, Uchiha Shinichi turned into a shadow and rushed to Hyojin like an arrow leaving the bow. So fast! After secretly exclaiming, Hyojin held his sword to meet it. Clang, clang, clang. For a moment, the sound of metal clashing resounded through the forest. Before the awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan, Shinichi of the Uchiha clan was already a Tokubetsu Jonin. If it weren't for the fact that the elders of the clan intentionally restricted the number of Tokubetsu Jonin in the Uchiha clan, he could have even been promoted to a Tokubetsu Jonin. After all, Shinichi, who is known as the #1 genius of the Uchiha clan, is only a Tokubetsu Jonin, and Hyojin, before activating the reincarnation, is just a Chunin in the wartime, and his real strength is just that of a senior genin. Therefore, there is a huge gap between the two in terms of talent. If neither of them had awakened, then even 100 Byakugan Hyojin wouldn't be able to defeat a single Uchiha Shinichi. Therefore, in terms of taijutsu and swordsmanship, Uchiha Shinichi, who has awakened his Manjikyu Sharingan, is not inferior to Hyojin, who has awakened his Tenseigan. This guy's swordsmanship is so sharp? Under the umbu mask, Hyojin's Tenseigan constantly captured the movements of Uchiha Shinichi, and even with the help of the Tenseigan, he faintly felt a little strenuous. Only now did he realize that the reason why Uchiha Shinichi was able to thwart the pursuit of the root and the umbu was not only because of the strange Manjikyu Sharingan technique. Damn it, he is actually so strong. How is this possible? Just as Hyojin was secretly surprised, Uchiha Shinichi's heart was also filled with a storm. Since the awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan, the ordinary Jonin, Uchiha Shinichi didn't even put them in his eyes. Even the Jonin of the Uchiha clan can be easily subdued by him. And after killing a large number of Root and Umbu ninjas, he felt that even the 3 generations of Naruto may not be his opponent now, so he always thought that dealing with Hyojin, who is only a Jonin, should be a piece of cake, just like eating and drinking. But at this moment, he found that even if he fully stimulated the Manjikyu Sharingan, it is difficult to completely capture Hyojin's movements, so he was naturally shocked. Clang! After another clash of swords, the two of them retreated. Both of them gasped lightly while staring at each other, trying to find each other's flaws. Originally, according to Hyojin's temperament, after confirming that there is no one around, he would directly enter the Tenseigan chakra mode, and then use the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion to kill Uchiha Shinichi. It's just that the ability of Uchiha Shinichi's Manjikyu Sharingan is a bit strange. It can actually remove or postpone the damage, which makes Hyojin cautious. Looking at the few new sword marks on his clothes, and then looking at Hyojin, who is enscathed on the opposite side, Uchiha Shinichi suddenly roared angrily. "Damn it! Don't think that this is the full ability of my Manjikyu Sharingan. Today I will let you see the gap between the Byakugan and the Sharingan." Unlike Hyojin, who was considering whether to enter the Tenseigan chakra mode, Uchiha Shinichi immediately became unstable after discovering that he was at a disadvantage in the taijutsu battle even though he has the Manjikyu Sharingan. With a roar, a huge dark green Susanoo was projected from Uchiha Shinichi's body. Standing in the Susanoo, Uchiha Shinichi looked at Hyojin coldly and said, "Hyojin, you are a good opponent, but it's all over now." Hyojin didn't say anything, just silently observing Uchiha Shinichi's Susanoo. At this time, Uchiha Shinichi's Susanoo is not the incomplete skeleton form that Kakashi saw before, but a relatively complete half-body samurai form. Under the protection of this form of Susanoo, Hyojin's conventional means have no way to deal with Uchiha Shinichi, so he can't hesitate anymore. After sighing softly, Hyojin put away the grass pill. Then he raised his hands and slowly made hand seals. Seeing this, Uchiha Shinichi said lightly, "Kuroto, don't waste your energy. This technique of mine is called Susanoo. All your attacks are useless against it." The appearance of Susanoo made Uchiha Shinichi return to a superior mentality again. But in his heart, he really wanted to defeat Hyojin fairly, but he found that he couldn't win against Hyojin with conventional means, and Hyojin guessed a little bit of his Manjikyu Sharingan ability, so he had to use Susanoo. As Hyojin finished the hand seals, the sky-blue Tenseigan chakra instantly wrapped his body and gently lifted him into the air. "You? This?" Looking at Hyojin entering the Tenseigan chakra mode, Uchiha Shinichi was stunned. Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. With a cold voice, a dazzling golden sword of more than 10 meters long appeared in Hyojin's hand. Chapter 124. Uchiha Shinichi looked at Hyojin flying in the air. His body was wrapped in the sky-blue Tenseigan chakra, and he was holding the 10-meter-long Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion in his hand. What kind of ninjutsu is this?" After saying that, he shook his head and said, "No, this is not ninjutsu, this should be your pupil technique, but Byakugan doesn't have such pupil technique at all." Hyojin said lightly, "There are a lot of things you don't know." Naturally, he will not explain to Uchiha Shinichi what Tenseigan is and what Tenseigan chakra mode is. Protecting his own intelligence information is already an instinct for him. "You really are not ordinary, my feeling was not wrong." After taking a deep breath, Uchiha Shinichi gradually calmed down. The pressure emanating from Hyojin in the Tenseigan chakra mode, although it is extremely powerful, it did not scare Uchiha Shinichi, but aroused his competitiveness. This also reminded him of the first time he fought with Hyojin. In fact, when they first fought, He faintly felt that Hyojin is a bit special, not like the ordinary Hyuga clansman, but he lost too badly at that time, so he couldn't say these words, because once he said it, the clansmen will not only not pay attention to this point, but they will also think that he is looking for an excuse for his failure. When he saw Hyojin in the Tenseigan chakra mode today, he knew that his feeling at the beginning was not wrong. Hyojin is really not ordinary. At this time, Hyojin slowly raised his hand. The more than 10-meter-long golden wheel reincarnation explosion is extremely dazzling in his hand, and in this dusky evening, it is as dazzling as the new sun. Well, this is a fair battle. Uchiha Shinichi raised a strong fighting spirit, and then shouted, Hyojin, Uchiha Shinichi will not lose to you twice. At this point, he no longer held back, and used all his strength to activate Susanoo. For a time, the Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets appeared slightly distorted, and blood flowed along the left and right eye sockets, slowly sliding down his cheeks, leaving 2 blood marks. Roar under his full strength, his Susanoo made a roar. With this roar, the form of his Susanoo changed again. He now had 2 more arms on each side of his body. At the same time, a layer of phantom armor appeared on his body. Hyojin's gaze turned cold, and he immediately swung his sword down. The golden wheel reincarnation explosion was like a dazzling golden light curtain, sprinkling on the dark green Susanoo of Uchiha Shinichi. At the same time, Uchiha Shinichi's Susanoo raised its 4 arms at the same time, firmly guarding in front of its body. Swish! With a sharp whistling sound, Hyojin's golden wheel reincarnation explosion slashed onto Uchiha and Shinichi's Susanoo. He blocked it. Seeing that the golden sword couldn't cut through his Susanoo, Uchiha Shinichi was overjoyed. Crack! But before he could smile all over his face, there was a shattering sound coming from his Susanoo. Then, the huge dark green Susanoo, like a broken eggshell, shattered inch by inch, starting from the 4 arms and extending all the way to the body. Taking advantage of the gap between the Susanoos shattering, Uchiha Shinichi's figure flashed and jumped out of the Susanoo. As soon as he escaped, Hyojin's golden wheel reincarnation explosion completely smashed his Susanoo, cutting his huge Susanoo in half. Cough, cough! At the moment when Susanoo was smashed, Uchiha Shinichi, who had just escaped, coughed up a large mouthful of blood. At this time, he looked up at Hyojin in shock and murmured, "This? How is this possible?" His Susanoo was smashed. At this moment, he even wondered if he was under some kind of illusion, because in his mind, Susanoo, which is rooted in the Manjikyu Sharingan, is a symbol of invincibility, an absolute defense that cannot be broken. In midair, Hyojin's expression was still calm. This time, he only used 1 truth-seeking ball for the golden wheel reincarnation explosion, and in order to avoid leaving too deep a sword mark on the ground, he also specially suppressed the power of golden wheel reincarnation explosion, so it's not surprising that he couldn't instantly smash the incomplete Susanoo of Uchiha Shinichi. Glancing sideways at the battlefield in the distance, Hyojin secretly said, "I have to finish this quickly." Although he led Uchiha Shinichi to a remote jungle, their movement here was still too big, so Hyojin noticed that there were ninjas of Cloud Village coming here. Uchiha Shinichi, who was coughing up blood, roared, "Damn it, where are you looking? I haven't lost yet." Soon, another dark green Susanoo was projected from his body, and immediately waved its 4 arms to attack Hyojin in midair. Boom! 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 Susanoo was like a real giant, with infinite strength. In just a moment, it turned the jungle upside down. At the same time, on another battlefield, Jishui, who was surrounded by more than a dozen Cloud Jonin, looked anxiously at the direction where Hyojin and Uchiha Shinichi were fighting. Although he is not a perception-type ninja, he still sensed the chakra reaction of Uchiha Shinichi's Susanoo, and knew that Uchiha Shinichi has used this Manjikyu Sharingan technique. He understood the power of Susanoo, but he was not worried about Hyojin's safety. Because in his mind, Hyojin, who was able to destroy the entire valley and hundreds of cloud ninjas with a single blow, has already surpassed the level of the Manjikyu Sharingan, and is undoubtedly the strongest ninja of the new generation of Mai. Therefore, what he was worried about was precisely Uchiha Shinichi, who had used Susan. He didn't want to see this elite Uchiha, who had just awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, die in the hands of his own people. At this moment, a figure slowly walked out of the forest. Jishui stared at the figure, and when he saw the appearance of the person, his face immediately sank. The figure that slowly walked over was not a bystander, it was the second Jinchuriki of Cloud Village, Yujito Ni. As Yujito Ni walked over, she gritted her teeth and said, "Humph, my Umbu Team 11, this time I finally caught you." Jishui immediately asked, "You have violated the truce agreement." "Truce agreement?" With a cold smile, Yujito Ni continued, "Last time, if it weren't for you little mice playing tricks behind the scenes, Mai would have already been captured by us." As soon as Yujito Ni's voice fell, a dazzling golden light flashed in the sky. Chapter 125. The dazzling golden light curtain on the horizon was particularly dazzling in the dim dusk, as if the sun that had just set climbed up from the horizon. Boom! Before the people on the field could sort out their thoughts, a loud rumbling sound came from the place where the light curtain was shining. Immediately afterward, the earth also trembled. It seemed that two giants were fighting fiercely in the distance where the light curtain was shining. Jishui's face was solemn. He knew that it was the direction where Uchiha Shinichi and Hyojin were fighting. Nibi's Jinchuriki Yujito Ni was also frowning, her expression was uncertain. As one of the commanders leading the team to support Uchiha Shinichi this time, she sneered at Uchiha Shinichi's insistence on fighting Hyojin alone. It's just that considering that Uchiha Shinichi is the possessor of the Manjikyu Sharingan, so she had no choice but to agree to this absurd request of Uchiha Shinichi. Is it Uchiha Shinichi and Hyojin who are fighting over there? Yujito Ni clearly knew the entire ambush area, so the battlefield outside the ambush area in the distance can only be between Uchiha Shinichi and Hyojin. It's just that it's hard for her to believe that a fight between Uchiha Shinichi and Hyojin can cause such a big movement. In her mind, only a person with the strength of a human pillar like her could cause such a large-scale destruction of the terrain. At this time, Jishui's eyes became firm. He knew that he can't delay any longer, otherwise, whether it is Uchiha Shinichi or Hyojin, he doesn't want to see it. After making up his mind, he immediately activated the Manjikyu Sharingan. Then, an emerald green Susanoo was projected from his body. Yujito Ni was shocked to see this. "You also have Manjikyu Sharingan?" All the Kumo ninjas who knew about Jishui's Manjikyu Sharingan were killed by Hyojin one by one, so Kumo didn't know that Jishui is also a Manjikyu Sharingan user. Jishui put the dagger in his hand back into the scabbard on his back and said, "I will never let Shinichi defect to Cloud Village." After saying that, Jishui's figure flashed, and the huge emerald green Susanoo also followed his figure and rushed out, and in just a few breaths of time, several Jonin ninjas of Kumo were sent flying. There is no doubt that with the growth of age and physical development, Jishui, who is already in her early 12 years of age, has become more and more proficient in controlling the Manjikyu Sharingan. On the other side of the battlefield, chi-chi-chi, the sharp sound of thousands of birds echoed in the forest, and from time to time there were a few wails mixed in. Holding his right hand that released Chidori, Kakashi squatted on a big tree, panting while observing the surroundings with his Sharingan. He has already noticed the golden light in the sky, so at this moment, he is not in the mood to play hide-and-seek with the Kumo ninjas in the dense forest. Swish! At this time, a kunai tied with a detonation talisman shot from behind towards Kakashi. Kakashi's figure was low, and while avoiding the kunai, He gently scratched the kunai with Chidori in his right hand, destroying the detonation talisman tied to the kunai. The expected explosion did not happen, which made the Kumo ninja hiding behind a big tree frown. But when he just poked his head out and wanted to see what was going on, a figure, accompanied by lightning, fell from the sky and pierced his heart in an instant. The Kumo ninja turned his head with difficulty, and what he saw was Kakashi's weird umbu mask. After pulling out his blood-stained right hand, Kakashi released Chidori and flew in the direction of the golden light without looking back. The sixth gate of view, open. As the sixth gate of the 8 inner hidden gates, the gate of view opened, Guy's body was completely wrapped up in steam. Even the surrounding leaves and gravel were affected, as if they were lifted up by some strength and lifted into the air. Several Kumo ninjas surrounding Guy looked at each other. Originally, they thought that they would be able to easily complete the strangulation task with a good draw. After all, according to the intelligence, only Hyojin, Jishui, and Kakashi are worthy of attention in Mai's Umbu Team 11, and the fourth member, Guy, is just a fill-in, so there is no need to pay too much attention to him. But the scene in front of them is obviously not consistent with what the intelligence showed. Glancing at the dazzling golden light in the sky, Guy shouted, "My companions are in danger, I can't stay here any longer and delay." Several Kumo ninjas suddenly said angrily, "Boy, you dare to look down on us?" Guy didn't explain, he put on a posture and waved his fist. "Chow peacock." Countless fist shadows flickered in the forest, and the flames caused by the rapid friction were like a group of fireballs, like a peacock spreading its tail, shooting towards the Kumo ninjas. Several Kumo ninjas were hit by the fist shadows almost without any reaction, like a kite with a broken string. One by one flew out, their life and death were unknown. After killing the enemy in front of him, Guy took a few heavy breaths, and then ran in the direction of the golden light on Hyojin's side. Entering the Tenseigan chakra mode, he flew up and down, easily avoiding a series of fierce attacks from Uchiha Shinichi's Susanoo. But what Uchiha Shinichi gained in this round of fierce attacks was only the bumpy ground and a messy forest. Swish! Hyojin, who escaped the heavy punch of Susanoo, directly cut off the head of Susanoo with a backhand sword. Hyojin was very careful every time he attacked, because he was worried that if he hit too hard, he would directly destroy the pair of Manjikyu Sharingan in Uchiha Shinichi's eye sockets. But Uchiha Shinichi's attacks were more and more fierce, making it more and more difficult for him to control his attack. Roar! With a wail, Uchiha Shinichi's Susanoo, whose head had been cut off, dissipated. And Uchiha Shinichi, who was getting crazier, once again summoned Susanoo while coughing up blood. What the hell? This is the 5th time he has summoned Susanoo. Is he also a Jinchuriki? Hyojin's face was still indifferent, but his heart was full of doubts. Although the two sides had not fought for a long time, with the sharpness of Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion, Hyojin had killed Uchiha Shinichi's Susanoo 4 times. Under normal circumstances, Uchiha Shinichi should have been exhausted long ago. But every time his Susanoo was destroyed by Hyojin's Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion, he could immediately summon a new one again, and his own chakra did not decline significantly, which made Hyojin amazed. Chapter 126. Hey, is the battle fierce to this extent? Looking at the golden light shining from time to time in the distant sky and the loud rumbling sound that kept echoing in his ears, White Zetsu's doppelganger was full of surprise at the moment. Because the main body and obsidian were at the periphery of my village at this time to contain the main force led by Danzo, so at the moment, only his doppelganger was responsible for monitoring Uchiha Shinichi. But no matter how much he calculated, he did not take into account Uchiha Shinichi's perception ability. Especially after awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan, Uchiha Shinichi's perception ability has been greatly improved, completely comparable to a normal perceptual ninja. Therefore, even if he can freely travel underground, He can't get too close, otherwise, he will be noticed by Uchiha Shinichi. This has been confirmed several times along the way, so at this time, he just looked at it from a distance and did not dare to get too close, so he did not know the specific situation on the battlefield. I can't let him die. But the intensity of the battle far exceeded his expectations. In order to ensure that Uchiha Shinichi would not have an accident, he hesitated and decided to take the risk to get closer. After a few leaps, he jumped on a big tree, trying to use the height of the tree to increase his field of vision. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, iron spears shot over from all directions. What? Before White Zetsu's doppelganger could react, he was pierced by iron spears from all directions. At first glance, his whole body was pierced like a hedgehog. Chi then, the unique chi-chi sound of the detonation talisman sounded. White Zetsu's doppelganger, who was imprisoned by countless iron spears, noticed that some iron spears were tied with detonation talismans. Oh no! After leaving only such a thought, White Zetsu's doppelganger was drowned in a series of explosions. As the explosion subsided, the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets that had been following behind Hyojin fell from the air and examined the wreckage of White Zetsu's doppelganger that had been blown up by the detonation talisman. In fact, from the moment Team 11 left the village, 3 generations of Kazekage puppets have been following Hyojin from a distance, responsible for cutting off all snoopers. Since he knew that Uchiha and Shinichi had been in contact with Obsidian, Hyojin would naturally be on guard against Obsidian and Zetsu's prying eyes. Therefore, even when fighting with Uchiha and Shinichi, Hyojin did not neglect to investigate the surroundings. It is also because of his caution that the moment White Zetsu's doppelganger approached, it was discovered by his Tenseigan in advance. This scouting White Jew doppelganger could lurk underground, and through the conduction of the earth, it could spy on Chakra's reaction in a large area. But in the face of air units, its scouting ability is very limited. This also led to him not being able to detect the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets flying in the air in time, and when he was attacked, he didn't even have time to react and was directly killed. On Hyojin's side, the battle is still going on. Through careful observation, Hyojin found that Uchiha and Shinichi can not only remove their injuries, but also maintain their own chakra's amount in the case of constant setbacks. Just removing or postponing the injured state can't do this. This guy's Manjikyu Sharingan ability is not only related to injuries. Thinking of this, Hyojin recalled what Jishuei told him about the death of Uchiha and Kurumi. His beloved died in his arms, but he couldn't do anything about it. At first, I thought that his awakened Manjikyu ability was related to healing, but now it seems that the keyword of his ability should be protection rather than healing. This protection is obviously not a simple enhancement of defense, but some kind of protection. It seems like Uchiha Shinichi's own state has been locked by the effect of Guardian for a certain period of time. Perhaps Uchiha Shinichi's state has been locked by the effect of Guardian. As long as he is within the scope of protection, no matter how much he is injured or how much chakra is consumed, his state will remain unchanged. But after all, this is only a Manjikyu Sharingan technique, so there must be a way to crack it. After roughly analyzing the ability of Uchiha Shinichi's Manjikyu Sharingan, it only took a moment for Suijin to think of 2 ways to crack this technique. The first method, as long as the time of protection ends, Uchiha and Shinichi's state lock will naturally be lifted. The second method, this Manjikyu Sharingan technique must have an upper limit on the amount of damage it can withstand. As long as he can deal enough damage to Uchiha and Shinichi in a short period of time, exceeding the upper limit of his protection ability, he will definitely be able to crack this technique. In the previous battle, Hyojin was worried that he would destroy Uchiha and Shinichi's pair of Manjikyu Sharingan, so when he attacked, he was very restrained. Now he understands that the more he restrains himself, the more he can't do anything to Uchiha and Shinichi, so he decided to change his strategy and directly attack Uchiha and Shinichi. As for whether he can protect Uchiha and Shinichi's pair of Manjikyu Sharingan, he can only leave it to fate. After making up his mind, Hyojin's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Uchiha and Shinichi. The Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion immediately followed, and the target was Uchiha and Shinichi. Boom! With a loud bang, Uchiha and Shinichi's huge Susanoo was shattered, and his body was directly cut in half by the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion. Uchiha and Shinichi, who fell to the ground, coughed up blood and murmured, "So fast." Hyojin looked at Uchiha and Shinichi while sensing the surroundings. In his senses, there are many chakra reactions coming towards him, including unfamiliar chakra and familiar chakra of class 11. Hyojin secretly frowned and said, "Time is running out." At this time, on the ground, Uchiha and Shinichi's Manjikyu Sharingan once again shed 2 lines of blood tears. Then, Hyojin felt a moment of trance. This process took less than a second, and when he came back to his senses, Uchiha and Shinichi had returned to their original state, and even the chakra amount did not decrease. Hyojin suddenly became sure and said to himself, "Sure enough." Uchiha and Shinichi, who had returned to their original state, did not immediately attack, but with a face full of surprise, he blurted out, "How? How can this be? Why did the time suddenly decrease by so much?" In Uchiha and Shinichi's prediction, his ability can be maintained for at least another 5 minutes, but after being directly cut by Hyojin's Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion, the duration of his ability was instantly consumed. Chapter 127. Hyojin didn't answer. He slowly raised his hand with a cold expression, preparing to give Uchiha Shinichi another Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion to completely destroy his Manjikyu Sharingan technique. But just as he was about to attack, Uchiha Shinichi suddenly staggered, and then his whole body fell to the ground on his back, losing consciousness. Hyojin's expression became solemn, and he immediately stared at the scene. At this time, in the vision of his Tenseigan, he saw that the chakra in Uchiha Shinichi's body had begun to weaken slowly. His guardian state has disappeared? Hyojin released the Tenseigan chakra mode and slowly landed on the ground. He stepped forward to check the state of Uchiha Shinichi and found that he was really unconscious, so Hyojin thought for a while, then released a shadow clone. After leaving the shadow clone in place, Kuroto quietly left with the unconscious Uchiha Shinichi. After a while, Jishuei, who had activated Susanoo, was the first to arrive at the battlefield. Looking at the battlefield in front of him that has almost plowed the dense forest into a plain, Jishuei was shocked. Soon, his eyes locked on Hyojin standing in the middle of the battlefield, and he hurried over. Jishuei hurriedly asked, "Senpai, where is Shinichi?" Hyojin's shadow clone shook his head. "He escaped." Hearing that Uchiha Shinichi is not dead, Jishuei was a little relieved, and immediately asked, "Where did he escape to? I will go after him now." Jishuei's voice hasn't fallen yet, but a dozen more figures landed on the messy battlefield. These dozen or so people are all Cloud ninjas, and the one leading them is Cloud's Jinchuriki, Riki Yujito. Looking at the battlefield in front of them, the Cloud ninjas all sucked in a breath of cold air. Being able to destroy a large area of the jungle like this, there is almost no need to think about it. Kumo ninjas can guess how fierce the previous battle was. Seeing that Uchiha and Shinichi were not in the field, Yujito-ni's heart jumped, and she asked Hyojin, "Uchiha, where is Shinichi? Did you kill him?" Hyojin's shadow clone coldly said, "This is our Mai's matter, it has nothing to do with your Cloud village." At this time, one figure after another arrived on the battlefield. Among them were Team 11's Kakashi and Guy, as well as other Cloud ninjas. Therefore, the 4 members of Team 11 gathered together and confronted the Cloud ninjas led by Ni. In a cave not too far away from the battlefield. Shaking his head, The unconscious Uchiha and Shinichi slowly woke up. After discovering that he was in a strange cave, he was shocked, but when he tried to stand up, he found that he couldn't exert any strength in his body. Suddenly, a voice came from the cave, "Your current state is very strange." Looking at the source of the voice, Uchiha and Shinichi saw Hyojin leaning leisurely against the rock wall with his arms crossed over his chest. After seeing that it was Hyojin, Uchiha and Shinichi didn't panic and said coldly, "I lost. If you want to kill me, then kill me, but if you want me to beg for mercy, there is no way." Hyojin said lightly, "Tell me about the ability of your Manjikyu Sharingan." Humph. Uchiha and Shinichi snorted coldly and remained silent. Hyojin didn't care and said casually, "Dying like this, don't you have any regrets?" It seems that Hyojin said what was on his mind. Uchiha and Shinichi suddenly lost control of their emotions and roared, "If I knew it would be like this, I would have made a scene in the village. Even if I die, I would have died on the battlefield." Hyojin curled his lips and said, "You should know that the root ninja was used by someone." Uchiha and Shinichi said fiercely, "But he killed Kurumi with his own hands, how can I let him go? Anyone related to this matter must die." "Aren't you curious about who is behind this?" Uchiha and Shinichi said firmly, "I know who it is, he is also my target." Hyojin was startled when he heard this. He thought that Uchiha and Shinichi didn't know who was behind this, but he never thought that Uchiha and Shinichi not only knew who it was, but also listed it as a target to be killed. Hyojin smiled lightly and said, "Interesting." Uchiha and Shinichi glared at Hyojin and roared, "If you don't kill me, one day I will kill all of you, so don't talk nonsense, do it. It's not too bad to die in your hands." "Kill, kill, kill, you only know how to kill." With a snort, Hyojin deliberately said, "Isn't it just a girl, it's not a big deal." Uchiha and Shinichi angrily said, "If you can return Kurumi to me, I can give you anything." Hyojin asked with interest, "What can you give me?" Thinking of his identity as a traitorous ninja, Uchiha and Shinichi suddenly became speechless. Soon, he seemed to think of something and said, "As long as you can return Kurumi to me, I will give you my Manjikyu Sharingan." Hyojin was a little surprised. "You are willing to give me your Manjikyu Sharingan in exchange?" Uchiha and Shinichi roared, "Are you kidding me? Compared to her, Manjikyu Sharingan is nothing." Rubbing his chin, Hyojin said, "It's not impossible to resurrect Kurumi, Uchiha, but why should I help you? If I kill you now, I can still get your Manjikyu Sharingan." Uchiha and Shinichi are obviously not concerned about the Manjikyu Sharingan. He looked at Hyojin with a hopeful look and asked eagerly, "Do you really have a way to resurrect Kurumi?" Hyojin nodded. "There is indeed a way to perfectly resurrect a person, but the price is very high. I can't use that power for your beloved." Hyojin is not sure whether his Tenseigan has the ability to resurrect a person. This point has yet to be explored, but he knows that the Rinnegan's main Tensei can perfectly resurrect a person. Uchiha and Shinichi suddenly became excited. "What do you want? I can promise you anything. I can give you my Manjikyu Sharingan. I can also help you kill people. As long as I can do it, I will promise you everything." Hyojin already has a plan in his mind, so he said, "Serve me for 15 years, and I will help you resurrect Kurumi, Uchiha." Uchiha and Shinichi replied without hesitation, "Okay, I promise you." Hyojin said, "Don't agree so quickly, listen to my request first. The first request, I want you to join the organization of the person who killed Kurumi." The Akatsuki organization's control over its members is actually very limited. Orochi Maru successfully left the Akatsuki organization, so letting Uchiha and Shinichi join the Akatsuki organization and become his undercover agent is not something impossible. Chapter 128. Uchiha Shinichi was shocked. "What? You want me to join his organization?" Hyojin didn't explain and said flatly, He should have invited you to join his organization. I need information about his organization. This is my first request. Now, Obsidian's actions are very different from the original time and space. It can be said that the development of the situation is getting more and more deviated from the original time and space. Therefore, the memory of his previous life is less and less helpful to Hyojin. Sometimes it can even be counterproductive. Therefore, he needs to plant a spy in the enemy's organization to grasp the movements of the Akatsuki organization in real time and grasp the movements of dangerous people such as Obsidian and Pain. And the Uchiha Shinichi in front of him is an excellent candidate. First, Uchiha Shinichi was tricked by Obsidian to defect. Fundamentally speaking, he is just a pawn of Obsidian, so Obsidian will be less wary of him. Second, Uchiha Shinichi is strong enough to occupy a place in the Akatsuki organization, so it is relatively easy to collect information. Third, as a traitor, Uchiha Shinichi has nothing to worry about. As long as Hyojin holds the key point of Uchiha Kurumi, he won't have to worry about him getting out of control. Uchiha Shinichi hesitated and said, I'm worried that I can't suppress my anger and will be seen through by him. Hyojin smiled and said, You don't need to suppress it, and you don't need to deliberately disguise anything. You can even try to attack him, he won't suspect you. Uchiha Shinichi asked in confusion, Why? Hyojin wanted to say because both of you are crazy, but looking at Uchiha Shinichi's eyes, he changed his words, because both of you are Uchiha. He is indeed of the same race. I just felt that there was something wrong with his eyes. Uchiha Shinichi snorted lightly, not understanding the true meaning of Hyojin's words just now, and asked again, You allowed me to attack him, but aren't you afraid that I'll really kill him? Hyojin shook his head. What I mean is, even if you attack him, he won't suspect that you're a spy. But I don't recommend you do that because you can't kill him. Puff, Uchiha and Shinichi wanted to argue, but before they could say anything, they coughed up a mouthful of blood. Hyojin's eyes narrowed. What's wrong with you? Shinichi Uchiha coughed up blood while trying his best to wave at Hyojin, indicating that he was fine. Hyojin's expression, however, became more and more solemn, because in the vision of his Tenseigan, the chakra reaction in Uchiha and Shinichi's body was getting weaker and weaker, and it had fallen to the level of a genin, and the trend of decline was still continuing. Not only that, Hyojin even felt that Uchiha and Shinichi's vitality was also declining. This feeling was somewhat unclear, but it was really felt. Puff, suddenly, a mass of blood burst out of Uchiha and Shinichi's chest without warning. Immediately afterward, a 2-finger-wide sword mark slowly appeared, and there were obvious traces of greenish-purple poison at the wound. Hyojin recognized at a glance that this was the poisoning symptom of the paralytic poison he synthesized. Is it the effect of my sword? Hyojin, who witnessed this scene, began to think. The current injury of Uchiha and Shinichi was obviously the result of Hyojin's surprise attack on his chest during the previous battle. This undoubtedly meant that once the ability of Uchiha and Shinichi's Manjikyu Sharingan was lifted, the injuries he had suffered before would break out after a period of time. At the thought of using the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion to cut Uchiha and Shinichi, Hyojin couldn't help but frown. He won't die just like that, will he? Hyojin's worries soon became reality. When the sword wound on Uchiha and Shinichi's chest broke out, cracks also began to appear on his waist and abdomen. As the cracks grew larger and larger, his whole body was broken into 2 pieces in front of Hyojin. Hyojin hurriedly walked over, trying to save Uchiha and Shinichi, but looking at Uchiha and Shinichi's body that was broken into 2 pieces, he didn't know where to start for a while. At this moment, a bloody tear flowed out of Uchiha and Shinichi's right eye socket. At the same time as the bloody tear flowed out, Hyojin on the side felt a trance. This trance, Hyojin had already felt once in the previous battle, so this time he quickly recovered, fully activated the Tenseigan, and looked at Uchiha and Shinichi on the ground. And at this moment, Uchiha and Shinichi, who were broken into two pieces on the ground, quickly recovered at a speed almost visible to the naked eye. If it's someone else, they may not be able to notice anything, but Hyojin, who has the Tenseigan, noticed many details. In just an instant, a thought flashed in his mind. This is not healing, this is simply rewinding time. Hyojin keenly noticed that at this time, the recovery of Uchiha and Shinichi's wounds and the appearance of the previous wounds are in the opposite order. In other words, this is not healing at all, but some kind of time reversal. It didn't take long for Uchiha and Shinichi to recover to their original state. If it weren't for the shocking blood all over the ground, Hyojin would have doubted whether the scene just now was real or not. After pondering for a moment, Hyojin asked, "Is the ability of your Manjikyu Sharingan related to time?" Uchiha and Shinichi, whose face was pale due to excessive blood loss, nodded and said weakly, "The ability of my left eye is called Heavenly Guard. It can keep me at my peak state for a period of time. Any injury and consumption will be distorted until a certain time later." Hyojin nodded. "I have already guessed this, but what you just used should be the ability of your right eye, right?" Uchiha and Shinichi covered their right eye and said with some pain, "The ability of my right eye is called Temporal House. It can temporarily distort the flow of time." After thinking for a while, Hyojin said, "You just used the ability of Temporal House to reverse the injury for a few minutes and remove those injuries from the temporal level, right?" Uchiha and Shinichi glanced at Hyojin and said weakly, "I didn't expect you to see through it at a glance." Pointing to the blood all over the ground, Hyojin wondered, "But what's going on with this blood? If time is reversed, the blood that flowed out should also be restored to its original state, right?" Uchiha and Shinichi shook their head. "The ability of Temporal House can only be used on me. Once the blood leaves my body and leaves the range of my chakra, the ability of Temporal House can no longer affect them." Chapter 129. Heavenly Guardian can distort all the damage suffered by the user to a certain point in time, and Temporal House can reverse this point in time, completely removing the accumulated damage from the temporal plane. These two abilities are a perfect match. Secretly sighing with emotion, Hyojin pondered about the method to crack the Manjikyu Sharingan ability of Uchiha Shinichi. There is no doubt that the method he used before is correct. As long as he causes damage to Uchiha Shinichi that even his Heavenly Guardian can't bear, he can accelerate the consumption of the duration of Heavenly Guardian and quickly crack his Heavenly Guardian. Thinking of this, Hyojin was a little puzzled and asked, "Since you know that the blood loss can't be reversed, why didn't you bandage your wound in advance?" Uchiha Shinichi still covered his right eye and said intermittently, "The outbreak of damage this time was very sudden. My Heavenly Guardian ability was interfered with by your ninjutsu." Hyojin secretly thought, "So it's because of the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion." Suddenly, Uchiha Shinichi shouted in pain. Hyojin asked, "What's wrong with you?" My eyes are hurting." Uchiha Shinichi covered his eyes and rolled on the ground in pain, wailing, "How can this be? Why do my eyes hurt so much?" Hyojin suddenly thought of something and said lightly, "Bear with it, it should be fine in a while." After a while, Uchiha Shinichi, who gradually recovered, asked weakly, "Do you know what's going on? Why do my eyes suddenly hurt so much?" Hyojin replied, "The Manjikyu Sharingan is actually not in a stable state. The more frequently you use it, the faster you will go blind." Uchiha Shinichi was shocked when he heard this. "What? I thought you knew all of this." After a pause, Hyojin continued, "So, if you don't want to become blind, you should try not to use the Manjikyu Sharingan jutsu as little as possible. Is there a solution?" Hyojin nodded. "As far as I know, there are two ways. One is to transplant the Manjikyu Sharingan of a blood relative and evolve it into the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. The other way is to transplant the cells of the Hashirama to give yourself certain characteristics of a sage and reduce the consumption of Manjikyu Sharingan. Hyojin didn't hide anything. He told Uchiha and Shinichi everything he knew. Because of this information, after Uchiha Shinichi joins the Akatsuki organization, it is very likely that he will learn it from Obsidian, so instead of waiting for Obsidian to tell him, it is better to tell him himself first. Uchiha Shinichi looked sad. My parents died in the Third Shinobi War, I don't have any blood relatives, and even if I do, I won't take their eyes. Hyojin smiled and said, Don't worry, as long as you work for me wholeheartedly, I will find a way to help you solve this problem. Uchiha Shinichi looked at Hyojin in a daze and said after a while, If it's you, then I believe you. Uchiha Shinichi has long been convinced by Hyojin's strength. If someone really has the ability to resurrect a person, then in his opinion, apart from Hyojin, there should be no one else in the shinobi world who can do it. Hyojin sorted out his thoughts and said, The organization I want you to join is called Akatsuki. After you join, don't be too high profile. There are many experts in this organization, one of the Sannin, Orochimaru is one of them. Uchiha Shinichi was a little surprised. A master like Orochimaru would actually join this kind of organization? Uchiha Shinichi, like many orthodox Mai ninjas, only has eyes for the 5 great shinobi villages. In his eyes, other organizations are not even worth mentioning. Hyojin said solemnly, The strength of this organization is not weaker than the village. I don't want you to get your eyes dug out on the first day you join. Seeing that Hyojin said seriously, Uchiha Shinichi had to be patient and nodded. The leader of the organization is a ninja with the Rinnegan. After a pause, Hyojin continued, The Rinnegan is the legendary eye of the Sage of Six Paths, so don't provoke him. The bastard who plotted against me, is he not the leader of that organization? Hyojin didn't answer directly but said with a smile, You need to figure out his identity yourself. Uchiha Shinichi nodded and said, I understand. Glancing at Uchiha Shinichi, Hyojin tentatively asked, If he said that he can help you resurrect Kurumi, what will you do? Uchiha Shinichi said coldly, I don't believe a word of his. Hyojin asked, What if he can really do it? Uchiha Shinichi was stunned when he heard this and immediately said, I know what you are worried about. Since I promised you, I will not betray you. As long as you can really resurrect Kurumi, even if he offers higher conditions, I won't be tempted. Hyojin didn't say anything, but quietly watched Uchiha Shinichi. Uchiha Shinichi curled his lips and said, Don't look at me like that, I'm not a fool. From the moment he plotted against Kurumi, there was no room for peace between me and him. What's more, even if he helps me resurrect Kurumi, he will definitely do something to her body. How can I allow him to violate Kurumi again? Don't even think about it. Hyojin nodded with satisfaction, then asked, Tell me, who is the Kumo spy lurking in the village? Uchiha Shinichi shook his head and said, I haven't seen his true face, he used a ninja beast to communicate with me. Hyojin's face sank when he heard this. Although he had already guessed that the Kumo spy lurking in the village would not reveal his true identity to Uchiha Shinichi, he was inevitably a little disappointed when he got the answer. Sighing, Hyojin asked again, Where is Kurumi's body buried? Why are you asking this? Uchiha Shinichi first asked warily, then remembered that Hyojin promised to help him resurrect Kurumi, so he replied embarrassedly, In a cave downstream of Naka River, no one knows except me. Hyojin said lightly, Tell me the specific location. Uchiha Shinichi realized something and asked, Are you worried? I have already told you not to underestimate Akatsuki's means. After a pause, Hyojin continued, If Kurumi's body is found by them first, then there is nothing I can do. Chapter 130. After writing down the place where Uchiha Kurumi was buried, Hyojin pondered for a moment and said, It's not safe here, we need to deal with it and find another place to recuperate. This cave is not far from the battlefield where Hyojin and Uchiha Shinichi fought. Once the Cloud Village or the Konoha Village find out that Uchiha Shinichi is missing, they will inevitably start a carpet search around the battlefield, and it won't take them long to find this cave, so it's not a good place to stay for a long time. Uchiha Shinichi nodded and immediately used Great Fireball Jutsu on the place where a large amount of blood was left. After being burned by the fire release jutsu, all the blood on the ground was turned into flying ash, and the place where Uchiha Shinichi was just lying just now was left with a black burn mark. On the battlefield, the confrontation between Team 11 and the Cloud Village continued, but both sides were afraid of each other, so no one dared to act rashly. Team 11 wasn't afraid of the Cloud Ninjas on the opposite side. As the captain, Kakashi was just worried that it would lead to an all-out war between the Konoha Village and the Cloud Village. On the Cloud Village's side, Yujito Ni learned that Jishui also has a Manjikyu Sharingan, and Hyojin seems to have defeated Uchiha Shinichi one-on-one, so she had the idea of retreating. After all, this is the territory of the Land of Fire, and the Mai Ninja army led by Jiraiya is not far from here. Once Mai's reinforcements arrive, they will be attacked from both front and back. Bang! Suddenly, a brilliant red light flashed in the distant sky, cutting through the heavy curtain of night. A Cloud Jonin came to Yujito Ni and whispered, "It's Mai's signal flare, we should retreat." Retreat. Yujito Ni coldly glanced at the four people of Team 11 and finally issued the order to retreat. Whoosh! Following Yujito Ni's order, the Cloud Ninjas turned into afterimages and quickly disappeared into the darkness of the night. Phew! Kakashi heaved a sigh of relief. Jishui asked Hyojin anxiously, "Senpai, which direction did Shinichi escape to?" Hyojin said, "Don't be hasty. Let's meet up with Lord Jiraiya and the others first." Knowing that Jiraiya's reinforcements were about to arrive, Jishui suppressed the anxiety in her heart. After all, there were only 4 people in Class 11, and it wouldn't be easy for them to hunt down an anti-tracking expert in the dense forest at night. After a while, Jiraiya led a large number of Mai ninjas to the battlefield. Even Jiraiya, who is used to seeing big scenes, couldn't help but be amazed when he saw the messy battlefield. Kakashi quickly stepped forward and reported to Jiraiya about the situation of the battle between Team 11 and Cloud Village, and finally said, "Uchiha Shinichi is currently missing after fighting with Kuroto." Jiraiya walked in front of Hyojin, looked up and down and said with a smile, "Little guy, we meet again." Hyojin, who has taken off the Umbu mask, saluted Jiraiya. "Jiraiya-sama." Speaking of which, Jiraiya can be regarded as Hyojin's lucky star. If Hyojin and Itachi hadn't accidentally met Orochimaru and Jiraiya, the consequences would have been unpredictable. Jiraiya said casually, "Tell me about your fight with him." Hyojin naturally won't tell the truth. In his description, the course of the battle became that Uchiha Shinichi used his Susanoo to attack fiercely, and he just dodged everywhere. In the end, Uchiha Shinichi seemed to have consumed too much of his chakra and had to withdraw. There are no loopholes in this statement, because almost all of the damage to the surrounding environment was caused by Uchiha Shinichi's Susanoo, and Hyojin's attacks have always been controlled, so no matter who it is, they can't find any loopholes in Hyojin's statement just based on the situation on the battlefield. After understanding the situation, Jiraiya personally deployed a search operation, and Kakashi once again summoned his ninja dogs. However, Hyojin's true body was always with Uchiha Shinichi, so whether it was Jiraiya's search operation or Kakashi's ninja dogs, they couldn't find any clues. In the blink of an eye, 3 days have passed. With Uchiha Shinichi's mobility, 3 days is more than enough for him to escape from the Land of Fire, so Team 11 had no choice but to return to the village. As soon as they returned to the village, Team 11 was summoned by 3 generations to Naruto's office. Naruto's office. 3 generations had a pipe in their mouth, their brows were furrowed, their eyes were cold, and there seemed to be a few more wrinkles on their foreheads. On the sofa, Danzo's face was gloomy, and no one could tell what he was thinking. Mitokemen Hamura and Koharu, the two advisor elders, were full of worry, with a heavy look on their faces. As the captain of Team 11, Kakashi reported the process of Team 11's pursuit of Uchiha Shinichi in detail, without leaving any details. After listening to Kuroto's explanation, Sandaime asked, "So, Uchiha Shinichi has defected to Kumo?" Kakashi had to bite the bullet and said, "I'm not sure at the moment, but the possibility is very high." 3 Generations waved his hand, signaling Team 11 to withdraw. After Team 11 left the office, Danzo said coldly, "There is a Cloud spy in the village." It's not difficult to come to this conclusion, after all. If there was no Cloud spy who instigated Uchiha Shinichi's rebellion, it would be impossible for Cloud Village to react so quickly and send reinforcements before Mai's pursuers caught up with Uchiha Shinichi. Pushing the glasses on the bridge of his nose, Mito Hamura added, "This spy can learn about the conflict between Uchiha Shinichi and Root, and bypassed the Uchiha clan to contact Uchiha Shinichi, indicating that his status in the village is not low, and is likely to be lurking in the Root or Umbu." Danzo was a little unhappy. "There is no problem with my Root," Zhuan Xiaochun said. "A mere Uchiha Shinichi broke through your Root base, and I heard that not only did they suffer heavy losses, but even the secret vault was looted. Danzo, this time you should reflect on your actions." "You!" Danzo glared at Zhuan Xiaochun, and then snorted, "Humph, I will investigate the Root, but I firmly believe that there is no Cloud spy among my subordinates." This time, Danzo made a big fool of himself. The Root base, as their base, was single-handedly broken through by Uchiha Shinichi. Not only the Root ninjas suffered heavy losses, but even the secret vault and laboratory were looted by unknown people. This directly caused the Danzo's prestige to plummet, and his authority in the advisory group was also affected. 3 Generations said, "I will also investigate the Umbu." Chapter 131. The defection of Uchiha Shinichi indeed exposed the threat of the Uchiha clan, but at the same time, this incident also showed the strength of the Uchiha clan. One Uchiha Shinichi alone caused a lot of trouble in the village. Not only was the village disgraced, but even after sending a large number of people, they still failed, leaving the defected Uchiha Shinichi still at large. Just imagine, if the entire Uchiha clan started a rebellion, what would the consequences be? Just thinking about such a scene made 3 Generations shudder, so he now has a headache dealing with the Uchiha clan. Danzo continued to urge, "Hizen, it's time to make up your mind. The loss of the test materials has caused many of his experiments to come to a standstill. Especially the loss of the Sharingan, it's even more painful to him. One must know that those Sharingan were collected bit by bit during the Third Shinobi World War. Now that the war has subsided, it won't be so easy to collect more Sharingan." 3 Generations shook his head. "Let's talk about Uchiha Shinichi later, let's talk about Kumo first." Danzo's performance this time disappointed 3 Generations. As the representative of the Hawk faction in the village, Danzo has always been the leader in suppressing the major shinobi clans in the village, but this time, Danzo couldn't even deal with the Uchiha Shinichi who had just awakened his Manjikyu Sharingan, which made the senior members of the village extremely embarrassed in front of the major shinobi clans. After leaving Naruto's office, Team 11 was dismissed. Back home, after confirming that no one is watching around, Hyojin took out 2 scrolls from his storage bag. "Open." Pressing both of his hands on the 2 scrolls, Kuroto sighed softly. Puff with a puff of white smoke, a corpse appeared on each of the 2 scrolls. On Hyojin's left was the corpse of Kurumi Uchiha. In order to arrive before Obsidian and Zetsu, Hyojin ordered 3 generations of Kazekage puppets to travel day and night to seize this corpse. After examining Kurumi Uchiha's corpse, Hyojin let out a soft gasp of surprise. Kurumi Uchiha's corpse seemed to have been smeared with some kind of medicine. Even though it had been buried for so many days, it still looked so lifelike, as if she had just died not long ago. Shinichi is really willing to spend money. Although he didn't know what kind of potion it was, it didn't stop Hyojin from guessing the high cost of this potion. After confirming that there was no defect in Kurumi Uchiha's corpse, and even the Sharingan was on the corpse, Hyojin used Fuinjutsu again and sealed the corpse into the scroll. Storage scrolls can't keep the corpse from rotting for a long time, so sealing the corpse in the scroll is only a temporary expedient. After checking Kurumi Uchiha's corpse, Hyojin's gaze moved to the corpse on his right. This corpse is none other than the corpse of White Zetsu's clone, who was responsible for tracking Shinichi Uchiha. It's just that due to the detonation talisman, this White Zetsu's clone was blown up into a mess. The so-called corpse is just a mass of white fabric. Hyojin slowly closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his eyes had turned into sapphire blue star-like Tenseigan. And in the vision of his Tenseigan, even if the corpse of White Zetsu's clone has turned into a mass of fabric, there is still a faint chakra reaction on it. As expected of the product of the fusion of Hashirama cells, the vitality is really amazing. After sighing with emotion, Hyojin resealed the corpse of White Zetsu's clone into the scroll. After putting away the two scrolls, Kuroto slowly walked to the balcony, bent down and jumped lightly on the roof. With one hand on his waist, he looked at the whole village. Right now, his top priority is to build his own laboratory and material vault as soon as possible, and considering the security issues, the choice of location is particularly important. While observing the layout of the village, Kuroto thought to himself, "The laboratory can't be too far from home, otherwise it will be too troublesome to go back and forth. The location should be hidden, at least it should be able to avoid the detection of ordinary perception-type ninjas." Thinking of this, Kuroto moved his gaze to the forest around the village. Although the village is surrounded by forests, these forests are not ownerless. For example, the clans of Nara, Akimichi, Inazuka, Yomi, and other clans are all near these forests, and these forests are often regarded as the sphere of influence of their respective clans, or grow herbs, or raise ninja beasts and insects. If Hyojin places the laboratory in these forests, it will be easy to be discovered. Hyojin's gaze swept from one forest to another, and finally fell on the Forest of Death, located in the corner of the village. The Forest of Death doesn't belong to any clan, it is the village's actual combat exercise field. Almost all my genin have practiced combat in the Forest of Death. In the Forest of Death, generally only genin and chunin are active, jonin rarely set foot in it. If I place the laboratory here, as long as the location is chosen properly, the possibility of being exposed is not great. Moreover, the Forest of Death is not far from the village, it is also very convenient to go back and forth. I can also use the excuse of synthesizing toxins to openly enter and exit the forest. The more Hyojin thought about it, the more he felt that it is a good idea to place the laboratory in the Forest of Death, so he pondered for a moment and decided to immediately conduct a field investigation. After arriving at the Forest of Death, Kuroto opened his Byakugan and began to inspect the surroundings. Soon, his attention was focused on a small corner at the edge of the Forest of Death, because that place can block his Byakugan's long-range detection. After thinking about it for a moment, Hyojin murmured, "Is that a node of the barrier?" The entire Konoha village is under the protection of the enchantment, and every node of the enchantment, because a large number of enchantment techniques are engraved on it, ordinary detection methods will be interfered with to varying degrees. The one maintaining this node should be the third class of the enchantment class. After a pause, Hyojin tried to recall the information of the members of the third class of the enchantment class. The 4 members of their class are all chunin. It seems that there is no perceptual ninja. As an subordinate to Naruto, Hyojin is qualified to read the files of ordinary chunin in Mai, so he has read the information of the members of the enchantment class, but at that time, he just glanced at it casually and didn't pay much attention to it. Therefore, he is not quite sure whether there is a ninja with hidden perception talent among the 4 members of the 3rd class of the enchantment class. Chapter 132. Because of his identity as an it only took Hyojin half a day to investigate the details of the 3rd class of the enchantment class and confirmed that none of the 4 of them are perception-type ninjas. As a result, Hyojin finally made up his mind to place the laboratory in the Forest of Death. The location he finally chose is located in the dense forest in a corner of the Forest of Death. That area is very remote and belongs to the edge of the entire practice field, and very few ninjas will set foot there. Moreover, that dense forest is within the range of the enchantment node. Inside the village, once a perception-type ninja approaches that area, their perception will be affected by the nearby enchantment node, resulting in a certain degree of deviation. Outside the village, the perception of perception-type ninja will be directly shielded by the enchantment. Therefore, this place can be said to be one of the many perception blind spots in the village, but because the area is too small, and it is not a strategic location, and there are no important facilities nearby, so no one cares about it. After choosing the location, Hyojin did not delay and immediately started work. In his plan, the laboratory is located more than 10 meters deep underground, so the amount of work involved in the whole project is very large. Hyojin and his shadow clone, plus the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets worked together, and it took them a whole week to complete the main structure of the laboratory. The entrance to the underground laboratory is in the tree hole of a big tree. There is a special mechanism in the tree hole. If it is accidentally touched by someone, it will immediately detonate the detonation talisman hidden in the tree hole, completely blowing up the entrance part of the ground. And the underground passage under the tree hole has also been arranged by Hyojin with several secret sealing techniques. Once an outsider breaks in, the sealing technique will be activated, and hundreds of detonation talismans hidden in the entire underground passage will explode together, blowing up the entire underground passage. After passing through the underground passage, the main part of the laboratory is reached. After that, the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets will guard the laboratory most of the time to ensure the safety of the laboratory, as well as to take away important test subjects and destroy the laboratory when a strong enemy breaks in. During the whole construction process, in order to keep it confidential, all the soil and sand excavated from the ground were sealed by Hyojin with a storage scroll, and then the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets took them to the far wilderness and discarded them. Therefore, although the construction volume of the whole project is not small, the appearance of the ground above the laboratory has not changed from beginning to end. Even if people who are familiar with this place pass by, they will not be able to see the slightest clue. After completing the main part of the laboratory, Hyojin moved the experimental equipment into the laboratory one by one. Large test benches, high-precision microscopes, large cell incubators, large nutrition tanks, large refrigerators, and so on. These were the instruments he looted from Danzo's laboratory, and they became the first batch of his personal belongings. After placing the instruments in the appropriate position, Kuroto took out his notebook and started writing and drawing. After a while, his face darkened. This laboratory is the key to whether he can climb to the peak of the shinobi world in the future, and in his huge plan, this laboratory will bear at least 60% of the research task, so a large number of experimental equipment is needed. According to his estimation, at least 20 large instruments are needed and hundreds of small instruments are needed. But at the moment there are only 8 large instruments looted from Danzo, more than half of them are missing, and more than 90% of the small instruments are missing. All in all, it will cost at least 3 billion. After listing the missing instruments one by one, and then estimating the price, Hyojin's forehead suddenly twisted into a Chuan character. Scientific research has always been a big expense of money. If you want to produce scientific research results, you must first spend a lot of money. This is the case throughout the ages. This is also the reason why Orochimaru wanted to cooperate with Danzo, because as the village's advisory elder, only Danzo can give him enough financial support. It is obviously unrealistic to get 3 billion in a short time, so Hyojin ticked on the notebook again and selected some of the urgently needed instruments. 1 billion after calculating the price. These urgently needed instruments add up to about 1 billion. As long as he gets 1 billion, he can buy these urgently needed instruments, then Hyojin's huge plan can immediately start. After thinking about it, it seems that the only way to get 1 billion as soon as possible is to become a bounty ninja. After all, with Hyojin's current strength, he can easily deal with most of the bounty targets. As long as he doesn't touch those with sensitive identities or strong targets, making money is relatively easy for him. And if he wants to become a bounty ninja, Hyojin must prepare a new identity. After all, the black market has its own rules of survival. The black market generally won't accept inexplicable people, so Hyojin needs a sock puppet that can adapt to the rules of the black market. Only by making a name in the black market and winning the trust of the employer can he smoothly accept the bounty task and receive the bounty. After a little thought, Hyojin took out a cloak and a mask. The cloak and mask are specially prepared by him. At first, it was only for the convenience of hiding his identity when he acts secretly in the future, but now he needs a new sock puppet, so these can be used. The cloak is black with golden lines on the edge, and inside, there is a seal personally arranged by Hyojin, which can isolate most of the detection ninjutsu. The mask is black and white, with a strange style of the Demon King drawn on it. There is also a seal inside, which can isolate a certain degree of detection ninjutsu. After putting on the cloak and mask, Hyojin's temperament changed. From afar, he looks like a god of death hiding in the darkness. What nickname should I give myself? Why don't I call myself Yama? Playing with the mask in his hand, Hyojin's mouth curled up, and he smiled, at the same time, outside a cave in the country of fire. Obsidian walked out of the twisted vortex, and Ju slowly poked his body out of the ground. Looking at the dark cave, Obsidian asked, "Is he inside?" Ju nodded. "Yes, he seems to be recuperating inside." The masked man didn't waste any more time and slowly walked into the cave. Uchiha Shinichi, who was recuperating in the cave, immediately stood up and shouted, "Who is it?" Obsidian said lightly, "It's me." Chapter 133. Uchiha Shinichi's anger at this time was not an act, because Hyojin allowed him to attack the obsidian, so he roared and rushed towards the obsidian. Whoosh, his figure flashed, and Uchiha Shinichi, who was holding the kunai, looked surprised and uncertain. Although he has already activated the Manjikyu Sharingan, he still couldn't see through the obsidian's ability, and the attack just now still passed through the obsidian's body, as if he had pounced on a mass of air. Obsidian didn't seem to mind Uchiha Shinichi's attack. He crossed his arms over his chest and said in a flat tone, "Are you still obsessed with this false world?" Uchiha Shinichi calmed down a little at this time. He knows that if he can't see through the obsidian's ability, no matter how he attacks, it will be useless. "Join us, I will create a world without regrets for you." Uchiha Shinichi snorted coldly, "Why should I believe you? You have been to the Naka Shrine, right?" After a pause, Obsidian continued, "Your Manjikyu Sharingan should be able to read the hidden content on the stone tablet, and that is my goal. Uchiha Shinichi has naturally seen the content on the stone tablet of the Naka Shrine. But he has no interest in the infinite Tsukuyomi world. His Manjikyu Sharingan's abilities are protection and backtrack, which also reflects his true thoughts. Unlike Obsidian, who desires to escape from the real world, Shinichi only desires to backtrack to the moment of Kurumi's death and protect Kurumi from any harm. As for the false Tsukuyomi world, he doesn't care about it at all. Although he has promised Suijin that he will join the Akatsuki, but now that things have come to a head, he couldn't open his mouth to admit defeat to the Obito, so he froze in place. Obsidian had already sensed Uchiha and Shinichi's hesitation, so he said, "If you've thought it through, you can come to the Rain Country to find me." With that, Obsidian did not stay any longer and turned to leave the cave. In his eyes, Uchiha Shinichi, who had betrayed Mai, had nowhere else to go. As long as he was patient, he would eventually be able to rope him into the Akatsuki. After meeting up with Ju outside the cave, Obsidian ordered, "Find Kurumi Uchiha's corpse." Ju nodded. After leaving a shadow clone at home, Hyojin transformed into Yama and quietly left the village. Because he is an Umbu, he knows about 50 to 60% of the black markets in the Land of Fire, so he quickly came to the black market closest to the village. On the surface, this black market is disguised as an izakaya. After exchanging a common code with the boss of the black market here, Hyojin was led to a compartment. Inside the compartment, the walls were covered with all kinds of bounties. Some seemed to have been posted not long ago. There was still glue on the edges. Some of the papers were yellowed. It seems that they have been posted for a long time. Very quickly, his attention was attracted by the 4 bounties in a row. The targets of these 4 bounties are none other than the 4 members of the My Umbu Team 11, and the paper is very new. It seems that they were posted not long ago. Among them, Jishue's bounty is the highest, reaching 50 million Ryo, and the bounty is also specially marked that Jishue has the rumored Manjikyu Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. The second is Hyojin's bounty is 30 million Ryo, Kakashi's bounty is 25 million Ryo, and Guy's bounty is still 20 million Ryo. Hyojin snorted lightly. Humph, Kumo is really capable of doing anything. There is no doubt that this new bounty is Kumo's masterpiece. Jishue ranks first because of the Manjikyu Sharingan. After the defection of Uchiha Shinichi, the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan was directly displayed in front of everyone, so although the 50 million Ryo bounty is exaggerated, it is still worth it for Jishue. On the other hand, Hyojin's bounty has risen from 20 million Ryo to 30 million Ryo. Perhaps it is because he defeated Uchiha Shinichi. However, Kumo doesn't know the specific situation of the battle at that time, so they can only vaguely judge that Hyojin seems to have defeated Uchiha Shinichi, who activated Susanoo. Therefore, the bounty on Hyojin's head has been increased by 10 million Ryo, from 20 million Ryo to 30 million Ryo. As the captain of Team 11, it is reasonable for Kakashi's bounty to be increased by 5 million Ryo, but Guy seems to have been ignored by Kumo again this time, and the bounty is still the original 20 million Ryo. Seeing that Hyojin's eyes are fixed on the bounty of the 4 members of Team 11, the boss rubbed his hands and said with a sneaky smile, "If you can get the heads of these 4 people, we can help you get the bounty within 3 days, and we will only take a 10% commission." Many bounty ninjas are reluctant to meet their employers in person for their own safety. After all, many of their employers are big forces like Kumo, so they need the black market to act as a middleman, and the black market can also get a service fee from them. Hyojin snorted coldly. "I don't want to provoke any of the 5 great shinobi villages. Are there any targets with high bounties that have nothing to do with any of the 5 great shinobi villages?" The boss wasn't surprised by Hyojin's request. After all, the 5 great shinobi villages are not to be trifled with. This is the most basic common sense in the shinobi world, so he immediately took out a small book from his pocket and handed it to Hyojin with a smile. These targets have nothing to do with any of the 5 great shinobi villages. You can take a look at them slowly, there is no need to rush. While flipping through the small book, Hyojin tore off a few pages of the targets he selected. These targets are either renegade ninjas who commit crimes or bandits who wreak havoc in the area. In short, they are all targets with average strength, and there won't be any future trouble after they are eliminated. With Hyojin's strength, coupled with the information he obtained from Mai through his identity as an umbu, in just a few months, he eradicated 3 groups of renegade ninjas, as well as bandits who pillaged the area. Leaving aside the bounty, Hyojin earned nearly 25 million ryo just from looting these renegade ninjas and bandits, plus the bounty. Even after deducting the commission from the black market, he has earned a total of 70 million ryo in the past few months. And with Hyojin's efficient completion of one bounty after another, his name of Yama has completely spread throughout the entire black market circle. Somewhere in the black market, Kakuzu, who was wearing Akatsuki's signature red cloud uniform, threw a corpse to the black market boss. The black market boss took the portrait of the bounty and compared it with the corpse, then stored the corpse in the cold storage, and said with a smile, "Kakuzu-sama, please wait a moment, the bounty will be delivered to you immediately." As one of the top bounty ninjas, Kakuzu has unparalleled prestige in the black market circle. Every time he completes a bounty task, the black market boss will advance the bounty to him, saving him the time to exchange for the bounty. Chapter 134. In the face of Kakuzu's inquiry, the boss smiled and explained, "You should have heard about it. Recently, a person named Yama appeared, and many bounty missions have been taken by him." Kakuzu was a bit suspicious. "Yama?" The black market boss laughed and said, "Yes, he is a very capable big shot. In just a few short months, he completed 7 or 8 difficult missions." Humph! Listening to the praise of the boss, Kakuzu lightly snorted. For him, all of his peers are his enemies, and those who are excellent are his enemies. It must be known that the bounty missions in the black market are not endless. A group of traitorous ninjas and bandits were cleared out, and their territory was now empty. As time passed, a new group of people would naturally come to fill in. However, this would require a certain amount of time, and even if new traitorous ninjas and bandits appeared, they would have to wait until they completely angered the local nobles and merchants. Only then would someone offer a bounty on them in the black market. Therefore, there are only so many quests. If a bounty ninja finishes all the quests in a short time, the other bounty ninjas will naturally have no work to do during this period. Seeing that Kakuzu and Yama don't seem to get along, the boss consciously shut up and no longer mentioned the topic of Yama. Kakuzu held the bounty book in his hand and thought about it. There is no doubt that the efficiency of this Yama in completing bounty missions is too exaggerated. Taking himself as an example, if he has his eyes on a group of missing nin, not to mention whether he can defeat them or not, it often takes 1 or 2 months just to find them. If his luck is bad, he might even need to look for them for several months. But this Yama actually completed 7 or 8 bounty missions in a few months, which shows that this Yama is not only strong, but his intelligence-gathering ability is also extraordinary. Kakuzu thought with certainty, behind this guy there must be an organization. Turning his head, Kakuzu asked the boss again, "The thing I told you to pay attention to, is there any result?" The boss shook his head and said with a slightly apologetic tone, "Kakuzu-sama, we have inquired around according to your request, but so far we have not received any news." Kakuzu gently nodded. "Continue asking." Kakuzu didn't really understand why the godlike leader of the organization would suddenly want to find a mysterious person related to my village. Moreover, the description of the mysterious man's characteristics was vague. Based on his experience, it would be difficult to find someone with such vague information, so he did not place much hope on the black market. On Hyojin's side, sitting on a cliff, he counted his earnings while eating rice balls. Just now, he had dealt with a traitorous ninja who specialized in kidnapping rich merchants' concubines in exchange for ransom. TSK, a guy at the level of a middle ninja actually hid so much money. How did he do it? Is kidnapping the concubine of a rich merchant so profitable? Tenseigan muttered under his breath. At first, he thought it was just an inconspicuous small task, but after a simple interrogation, this traitorous ninja actually proposed to use money to redeem his life. Hyojin pretended to agree, and then followed the clues and found the small vault where the traitorous ninja hid his money. But he didn't expect that there was more than 10 million ryo hidden in the small vault. After a little thought, Hyojin understood why this traitorous ninja was able to repeatedly succeed. Rich merchants themselves or their children, on the one hand, have strong security, so it is not easy to capture them, and on the other hand, even if they succeed, the rich merchant's family will pay a lot of money to ask for help from the major shinobi villages. But kidnapping a rich merchant's concubine is a different story. Rich merchants often, for the sake of face, would rather spend money to eliminate disasters than to cause a commotion about their concubine being kidnapped. Therefore, although this traitorous ninja only has the strength of a chunin, he has repeatedly succeeded, and after more than a decade, he has accumulated a lot of wealth. While feeling happy, Hyojin also pondered. His own strength was not the main reason why he was able to complete bounty quests so efficiently. In fact, the real primary reason is that he used his identity as an Umbu subordinate to Naruto, and used the huge intelligence network of Mai, the head of the 5 great shinobi villages in the shinobi world, so he can efficiently find the target. Secondly, the unparalleled flying speed of the Tenseigan chakra mode is also one of the reasons why he can quickly complete bounty tasks. Without these 2 points, even if he is strong, he would have to obediently spend a month or 2 to search for the target all over the shinobi world. But the number of bounty tasks is ultimately limited. At present, almost all the simple bounty tasks have been swept clean by him, and the remaining ones are either very time-consuming or involve the 5 great shinobi villages, so he needs to find a new way to make money. And this traitorous ninja, who specifically kidnaps the concubines of rich merchants, gave Hyojin an inspiration. In the shinobi world, some rich merchants can really be rich enough to rival a country. In the original story, Zabuza launched a coup in the Mist Village and failed. He was recruited by Kato, a rich merchant who controlled the country of waves, and a battle of life and death broke out between him and Kakashi Shinobi. Zabuza is also an elite ninja who launched a coup in the Mist Village, one of the 5 great shinobi villages, and he is also one of the 7 swordsmen, the beheading sword. This level of ninja, even if the scope is expanded to the entire shinobi world, it is also ranked. But when he was down, he had to work for Kato, which shows how exaggerated the influence and financial resources of a rich merchant like Kato are. Bang! Suddenly, a puff of white smoke appeared beside Tenseigan. After the white smoke dissipated, an orange cat appeared in front of Hyojin. At this time, the orange cat stretched out his front paw to Hyojin and said, "Meow, 1,000 yen, thank you." Hyojin handed the orange cat 1,000 yen with a black face, and then took a scroll from the orange cat's hand. This orange cat is not an ordinary kitten, but a ninja cat named Misato. It is Uchiha Shinichi's psychic ninja beast. In order to safely transmit messages, Hyojin also signed a psychic contract with it, so Misato became a bridge between Uchiha Shinichi and Hyojin to transmit information. It's just that this stupid cat wants money. Every time it sends a message, it has to be charged, so Hyojin can't help but complain that Uchiha Shinichi can't even deal with his own psychic ninja beast. Opening the scroll from Uchiha Shinichi, a line of words came into Hyojin's eyes. That bastard said he is Uchiha Madara. He really thinks I'm an idiot. I told you, that bastard doesn't have a word of truth in his mouth. By the way, the partner the organization arranged for me is a mist ninja named Pipa Juzo. Chapter 135. The fact that the Obsidian used the power of the Akatsuki to find him is not surprising to Hyojin. Previously, when they fought in the root base, both sides were very restrained, but it is precisely because of this restraint that it shows the fear hidden in the hearts of both sides. For the Obsidian, the existence of this mysterious person, Hyojin, is undoubtedly a huge variable. Therefore, he can't allow this variable to continue to exist and interfere with his plan, but even if he uses the power of the Akatsuki, it will not be easy to find Hyojin. What's more, now that Hyojin has received a message from Uchiha Shinichi, he will naturally be more careful. Oh, Shinichi is really sharp sometimes. He guessed that the person the Obsidian is looking for is me. Hyojin chuckled as he put away the scroll. In the past few months, the shinobi world has not been peaceful. Because of the defection of Uchiha Shinichi, the peace negotiations between Mai and Kumo suddenly fell into an impasse. Mai accused Kumo of sheltering Mai's traitorous Shinichi. But Kumo naturally denied it, claiming that they have never seen Uchiha Shinichi at all, and they have no intention of accepting Uchiha Shinichi. However, because Kumo village sent shinobi to infiltrate the Land of Fire to support the defection of Uchiha Shinichi, their defense is weak. Not to mention Mai doesn't believe it, even the Rock, Sand Crypsis, Mist, and other shinobi villages don't believe it. This time, Kumo village is like a piece of yellow mud falling into their pants. Even if it's not shit, it's still shit. There are even rumors that the Uchiha clan secretly sent people to Kumo village, trying to contact the defected Uchiha Shinichi, but no one knows what happened next. Under such circumstances, the matter of the Wind Nation's dragon vein being stolen had a very limited impact. The three generations were indeed very concerned about the theft of the dragon's vein, but the troubles in the village came one after another. He did not have the energy to deal with the dragon's vein at all, so the matter of the dragon's vein was put on the shelf. When Mai's attitude toward the theft of the dragon's vein was reported back to the Sand Crypsis, the upper echelons of the Sand Crypsis immediately became suspicious. Some of the upper echelons of the Sand Crypsis even suspected that Mai had stolen the dragon's vein. That was why Mai did not care about the matter. Although the shinobi world is full of changes recently, it has no effect on Hyojin. He is still working hard on his plan. In the mansion of the Mishima family, the head of the Mishima clan, Mishima Yutaro, respectfully said to a burly man dressed as a Ronin samurai with a bamboo stick in his mouth, "Mr. Yagami, the equipment you wanted has been delivered." The samurai called Yagami smiled and said, "Then bring it in." The samurai named Yagami is none other than Hyojin, who has used the body transformation technique. Inspired by the traitorous ninja who kidnapped a rich merchant's concubine, Hyojin also set his sights on the rich merchants. After a careful investigation, he found that the Mishima clan, which has a monopoly on the cloth business in the Land of Iron, is not only very rich, but the backer behind them is also not one of the 5 great shinobi villages, so he set his sights on the Mishima clan. Originally, he was also planning to kidnap 1 or 2 concubines and exchange them for some ransom, but he did not expect that just when he was about to make his move, he accidentally discovered that the concubine of the Mishima clan had an affair with the samurai hired by the Mishima clan. Moreover, this adulterous couple even plotted to poison the Mishima clan's head and seize the Mishima clan's property. After learning this news, Hyojin immediately changed his mind, and using the identity of the wandering samurai Yagami, he approached the Mishima clan's head, Mishima Yutaro. Then, he exposed the affair and conspiracy between the concubine and the samurai, and in front of Mishima Yutaro, He easily killed the samurai hired by Mishima Yutaro with a large sum of money. Kuroto immediately became Mishima Yutaro's honored guest after saving his life. Coupled with his extraordinary skills, Kuroto immediately became Mishima Yutaro's guest. Although the backer behind Mishima Yutaro is not one of the 5 great shinobi villages, his business with the 5 great countries is not small, and over the years, he has accumulated a lot of contacts in the major countries. Therefore, with the help of Mishima Yutaro's contacts, Hyojin began to purchase the various experimental instruments he needs. If Hyojin went to purchase these instruments with his real identity, he would soon be noticed by some people, and the village leaders are not blind, so they will inevitably investigate him. Moreover, if he purchases these instruments through the black market, the price will be 40% to 50% higher than the normal price, and such a large purchase will easily attract the attention of others. Therefore, through the Mishima clan's contacts, Kuroto can purchase in batches in the major countries. Not only can he deceive people, but also can he reduce the cost. After the servants of the Mishima clan carefully carried the instruments into the courtyard, Hyojin hurriedly walked over. Mishima Yutaro also followed on the side and said with a smile, "Yagami-san, you see, this filter centrifuge is the latest equipment of Cloud Village. In order to get this equipment, I used a lot of my connections." "Not bad, not bad." Hyojin nodded repeatedly, and then immediately frowned. "Hey, this isn't new, right?" Mishima Yutaro smiled and said, "Don't worry, although this equipment isn't brand new, it is at least 80% new." Hyojin also knew that it is difficult for ordinary businessmen to buy brand new equipment, even if they used their connections, so he did not blame Mishima Yutaro. After checking the other equipment one by one, Hyojin said to Mishima Yutaro with satisfaction, "Thank you so much this time." After saying that, Hyojin handed over more than 90 million yuan that he had earned these days to Mishima Yutaro. The total value of this batch of equipment, Hyojin estimated, was at least more than 100 million yuan. If he went to the black market to buy it, he would not even think about it without 130 million yuan. Therefore, Hyojin had made a lot of money by only using 90 million yuan to get this batch of equipment. After sending everyone away, Hyojin carefully sealed the equipment into the storage scroll one by one. Bang! As soon as Hyojin sealed all the equipment, Moneymaker walked out of the white smoke. Moneymaker stretched out its front paw to Hyojin and said, "Meow, 1,000 yuan, thank you." Hyojin was speechless and said, "Can't you ask Shinichi for money?" "Meow, he has already given me money." Hyojin was startled and said, "You collect money from both sides?" He had always thought that he was the only one who had to pay, but after asking this time, he found out that Uchiha Shinichi, the fool, also had to pay money to use his psychic ninja beast. The orange cat Moneymaker nodded very seriously and said, "Meow, it is like this." After handing Moneymaker 1,000 yuan, Hyojin took the scroll. "There is a result of looking for the mysterious man. The organization has locked on to 2 guys. Pipa Juzo and I are responsible for looking for a guy named Shino. It is said that this person is sneaky and has a ninja village background." Chapter 136. Hirako. As soon as he saw this name, Hyojin's expression became solemn. In Hyojin's next big plan, Hirako has an irreplaceable and important role, so recently, Hyojin has been inquiring about Hirako's whereabouts. It's just that this Hirako is a renegade ninja that might put a bounty on, so even if Hyojin used Mai's intelligence network, he still couldn't find any clues about him. Unexpectedly, the Akatsuki organization actually discovered Hirako's whereabouts first, which is indeed somewhat out of Hyojin's expectation. Sigh, I didn't expect that just one encounter in the root base would cause such an unpredictable change in the situation. Fate is really mysterious and unpredictable. When he thought that the Akatsuki organization's actions were inadvertently caused by him, Hyojin couldn't help but sigh at the impermanence of the cause and effect of everything in the world. Soon, Hyojin put away his sigh and started thinking about the next step. Hirako and Orochimaru were born at the same time, so the two of them more or less have some friendship. The Akatsuki organization sending Orochimaru and Sasori's group to look for Hirako should have two reasons. First, Obsidian wants to confirm whether or not Hirako is the mysterious person he met in the root base. Second, through Orochimaru's favor, they want to recruit Hirako into the Akatsuki organization as Mai's traitorous ninja. It should be too late to stop it now. Hyojin propped his chin with one hand and continued to ponder. If Hirako is recruited into the Akatsuki organization, what kind of impact will it have on me? Between each group in the Akatsuki organization, there is no subordinate relationship. Orochimaru and Sasori may mention to Uchiha Shinichi who their group's target is, but they will never report any specific information to Uchiha Shinichi. On the other hand, Uchiha and Shinichi have no reasonable reason to ask for detailed information about Hirako, so at this time, Hyojin can no longer stop the Akatsuki from contacting Hirako. Fortunately, Hyojin only needs Hirako's technology. Even if Hirako joins the Akatsuki, he still has a way to get the technology he wants. After putting away all the storage scrolls, Hyojin bid farewell to Mishima Yutaro and quietly returned to the village. As soon as he returned to the village, Hyojin went straight into the secret laboratory. The instruments he purchased this time were all carefully selected by him, and they were also the most lacking part of his current plan. Therefore, with this batch of instruments, he could already choose to start his plan. But before that, he still needs to see Orochimaru. In terms of bioengineering, Orochimaru can be regarded as one of the best experts in the shinobi world. Although Hyojin obtained the Tenseigan by activating a special gene sequence, this does not mean that Hyojin is better than Orochimaru in bioengineering. It's just that Hyojin knows some secrets that Orochimaru doesn't know. Therefore, if Hyojin wants to carry out his huge plan, Orochimaru's support is indispensable. Moreover, he also needs to confirm Hirako's situation through Orochimaru. What he is most worried about now is not that Hirako joined the Akatsuki organization, but rather that Hirako refused to join the Akatsuki organization and was killed by them. If Hirako dies in such an inexplicable way, then Hyojin's plan will have many twists and turns. Through the summoning beast One-Eyed Viper, Hyojin sent a meeting request to Orochimaru. Bang! That didn't take long for the One-Eyed Viper to appear again and spit out a scroll. Hyojin opened it and immediately murmured, "The land of Tian." There is not much information on the scroll, only a few sentences. The content is that Orochimaru asked Hyojin to meet in a secret base in the land of Tian 2 weeks later. In the blink of an eye, 2 weeks passed. Hyojin strolled in the forest of the land of Tian, leisurely as if he was just a traveler on an outing. Suddenly, a kunai shot into the open space in front of Hyojin. Hyojin stopped and said, "I'm here to see Orochimaru." A figure fell down, looked up and down at Hyojin, and then said, "Please come with me." And looking at the other party's face, Hyojin was stunned. The person in front of him turned out to be the lucky guy who successfully adapted to the first-generation cells. Why did Orochimaru defect in advance? Why did Orochimaru and Danzo become irreconcilable? Why did Danzo deliberately retaliate against Orochimaru and even purge Orochimaru's old subordinates on a large scale? These doubts that have troubled Hyojin for a long time were all solved the moment he saw Yamato. Yamato, the only one who succeeded in the first-generation cell transplantation plan, was the fuse of all things. In order to compete for him, Orochimaru and Danzo became enemies and chose to defect. Yamato looked back at Hyojin at this time and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Hyojin shook his head and restrained the strange expression on his face. Following behind Yamato, Hyojin pondered while walking. In the original space and time, Orochimaru thought that Yamato was also a failed product, but in the end, Danzo picked up a loophole. I didn't expect that in this world, Orochimaru didn't ignore Yamato. As the only one among the 60 experimental subjects who successfully integrated with the first-generation cells, Yamato's research value was unquestionable. It can be imagined that when Orochimaru and Danzo found out that Yamato successfully integrated with the first-generation cells, they must have launched an intense competition between them. And the result was also clear: Orochimaru obtained Yamato, but was forced to defect from the village. Following Yamato, Hyojin arrived in front of an underground entrance. Yamato turned to Hyojin and said, "There will be some snakes at the entrance, don't worry, as long as you follow me, they won't attack you." Hyojin smiled and nodded. Not long after, the two passed through the dark and damp underground passage and officially entered Orochimaru's secret base. After passing through several underground corridors, Yamato led Hyojin to a secret room. Yamato stepped aside and said, "Orochimaru, Sama is inside, you can go see him yourself." Hyojin casually looked around and nodded with a smile. Along the way, Hyojin found at least 10 traps, 5 seals, and more than 20 ninjas hidden in the dark. Such a strict arrangement was obviously not the way to treat a guest. There is no doubt that Orochimaru has bad intentions towards him. But in Hyojin's view, this is also inevitable. If he wants to change from a subordinate to an equal partner, it will inevitably take some effort, not to mention that Orochimaru has never been a good person, so this scene will appear sooner or later. Chapter 137. In the secret room, Orochimaru was sitting on a chair, holding an open scroll in his hand. Seeing Hyojin come in, he said in his trademark hoarse voice, "Kuroto, I have a question." Hyojin stood quietly at the door and asked, "What question?" Orochimaru didn't rush to speak, but rolled up the scroll in his hand little by little. Under the flickering candlelight, his face flickered between light and darkness. After rolling up the scroll, Orochimaru threw it to Hyojin. Catching the scroll, Hyojin opened it and found that it was full of information about himself. The most recent information even included the fight between Team 11 and the defected Uchiha Shinichi. Hyojin smiled and said, "It seems that you have been paying attention to me." Orochimaru stuck out his tongue like a snake and licked the corner of his mouth, saying gloomily, "Your Excellence makes it impossible for me to ignore you." Hyojin said calmly, "Thank you for the compliment." Orochimaru narrowed his eyes. Hyojin's calmness made him feel a trace of fear. Compared to others, Orochimaru has a much deeper understanding of Hyojin. At least, Orochimaru knows that Hyojin currently has the Ryumyaku's Jinchuriki. After pondering for a while, Orochimaru said, "I heard that you fought with Uchiha Shinichi and defeated him?" The corner of Kuroto's mouth rose as he smiled. "It's just a brief exchange, I can't deal with him." Orochimaru mentioning Uchiha Shinichi is completely within Hyojin's expectations. He even suspects that Orochimaru is already planning to seize Uchiha Shinichi's Manjikyu Sharingan. After all, in the original story, after Itachi joined the Akatsuki, Orochimaru couldn't wait to attack him. Sure enough, Orochimaru asked again, "What is the ability of his Manjikyu Sharingan?" Hyojin first shook his head, then deliberately exaggerated. "I don't know, I only know that he is very strong, no one in the village can stop him, even Danzo has to avoid him." Orochimaru snorted coldly, his expression somewhat disdainful. It's just that Kuroto doesn't know whether this cold snort is disdain for Uchiha Shinichi or disdain for Danzo. Hyojin said, "Orochimaru-sama, if you want to deal with Uchiha Shinichi, I advise you to be more cautious." Hyojin still needs Orochimaru to inquire about Hiriko's information, or further, to obtain Hiriko's secret technique, so he doesn't want Orochimaru to leave the Akatsuki organization too early. Orochimaru's eyes narrowed, revealing a strange smile. How do you know that I want to deal with him? Hyojin shrugged. Just like how I know that you want to deal with my opponent, it's actually very easy to guess. Orochimaru gently raised his hand, and countless snake shadows shot out from his sleeves towards Hyojin. Whoosh! Whoosh! Hyojin didn't dodge, instead. He pulled out the blade of grass from his waist. Then, he brandished his sword. Under the sharp sword light, all the poisonous snakes shot out from Orochimaru's sleeves were cut into several pieces and scattered on the ground, the pieces of meat twitching in a disorderly manner. Orochimaru said, "It seems that you have solved the caged bird." In Orochimaru's opinion, Hyojin, as the spy he left in the village, would never dare to have a showdown with him without solving the caged bird. After all, as long as he reveals Hyojin's identity as a spy, he doesn't even need to do anything. Hyojin will die in the hands of the Hyuga clan without solving the caged bird. Holding the blade of grass? Maru. Hyojin didn't comment on Orochimaru's words. Orochimaru once again stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. You really fascinate me more and more, let me see how many secrets are hidden in your body. After saying that, Orochimaru quickly printed and shouted, "Secret technique, sealed 10,000 snakes formation." Bang! In an instant, the secret room was filled with poisonous smoke. At the same time, the hissing sound of the snake's tongue also came into Hyojin's ears from all directions. Hyojin put on the gas mask, and then quietly opened the Tenseigan under the cover of the mask. This gas mask was specially prepared by Hyojin before he set off. His methods of using poison were almost taught by Orochimaru. In the face of Orochimaru, he naturally will not guard against Orochimaru's poison. After activating the Tenseigan, the mere poisonous smoke also lost its effect of obscuring his vision. Everything in the secret room became clear at a glance in his Tenseigan. After a little look, he found the figure of Orochimaru, and then holding the blade of grass, Maru slowly walked over. Swish, 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 almost every step he took, there would be more than a dozen poisonous snakes pouncing on Hyojin from different directions, and their results were without exception, all of them were broken into several pieces, and their heads were separated from their bodies. In the past, in the face of such a dense and strange attack, Hyojin, who was inexperienced, might choose to use revolving heaven to defend. But with one fierce battle after another, whether it was victory or defeat, Hyojin, who constantly summed up the experience and lessons, his mediocre combat awareness was also rapidly improving. Seeing Hyojin approaching himself step by step, Orochimaru sneered and opened his mouth, spitting out a blade of grass from his stomach. Sword. Accompanied by the gust of wind, a sword light slashed at Hyojin. Hyojin did not dare to be careless, and quickly used the blade of grass in his hand. Maru to meet it. Clang! A sharp and harsh sound of metal clashing rang out in the almost closed secret room. Orochimaru's eyes moved to the blade of grass in Hyojin's hand. Maru wondered, blade of grass? Sword? Hyojin also took advantage of this short interval to look at the blade of grass in Orochimaru's hand. Sword. He thought to himself, this blade should be the blade of grass that killed 3 generations of Naruto, right? Sword. Clang, 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 the two did not communicate, nor did they retreat. They started a close combat in the closed secret room. For a moment, the sword light flashed in the secret chamber, and all the chairs and decorations were destroyed. Even the candlesticks were cut into pieces by the sword light. The candles that were as thick as a forearm were even cut into 2 halves from the wick. As the candlestick was cut out, the secret room fell into darkness, but in the darkness, the battle continued. Boom! After a while, the secret room finally could not withstand the 2 sharp blades of grass. The destruction of the sword collapsed in a roar. Accompanied by the smoke of the collapse of the secret room, two figures flashed out. Glancing at Orochimaru, Hyojin smiled and said, "You have been hit by my 15 swords." Orochimaru did not care and also smiled. "You are indeed a genius of the Hyuga family. Your physical skills are really commendable, but it's almost time." Hyojin asked, "What time?" Orochimaru held the sword in one hand and put the other hand on his waist. He smiled and said, "Do you think you can block my poisonous smoke by wearing a gas mask?" You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.